Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come on down to the campfire for this short rest with me and my friends. Dice Paper Roll! Beer, 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 beer! How you going, everybody? Welcome in.
Going good.
It's good to have you here. Good to have you here. And it seems like the Tech Gremlins have been satiated for now. Thank you to all the people using your channel point redemptions to mollify the Tech Gremlins. That's right. Some of my Twitch channel points just go to just mollifying Tech Gremlins. It happens so often that they have to sacrifice their bits to help me appease the gremlin gods. Welcome in, everybody. It's so good to have you all here. Thank you for making it, and for so early a time in your local time as well. Very kind of you to get up early for this. Let's introduce the people who might not know to who everybody is. As per my overlay, we'll start with Dan because you're right next to me here. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dan Last. I'm one of the DMs and players of Dice Paper Roll.
Nice.
Don't really do much outside of that.
Next to you in my overlay is Ben.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ben, and I'm also one of the players and DMs of Dice Paper Roll, also the editor. And I guess we all co-produce, so that's me. And outside of here, I slave away in the film industry. So it's that and D&D podcast. Yeah.
What sort of a role do you usually take in the film industry?
At the moment, I'm in transport, the transport coordinator.
Oh, nice.
Getting all the cast and the crew around and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of logistics.
Yeah, I was just about to say a lot of logistics and all like that.
Yeah.
We'll drop below you too, Greg.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, I'm Greg Pickering, at Dammit Greg. I am DM player in Dice Paper Roll. I also do a bunch of the admin and produce our live shows. I also have a really interesting and cool job like Ben. I work in the finance industry, baby.
Oh, yeah, doing transport, getting all the actors around.
Oh, something. I move stuff around.
Move stuff around.
Just paper on a desk. Yeah.
Greg, you're not supposed to admit you do money laundering.
Move money around. Man, I was much older than I'd like to think when I realized that money laundering isn't literally laundering money. I thought it was like, it's money gets filthy because they're like rolling it up to snort coke from us, or maybe blood gets on it because they're doing crime stuffs and they need to launder the money. They need to clean the money.
I mean, it is gross. Money is gross.
Money is pretty gross, yeah.
Yeah, don't lick it.
Oh, is that why I get sick?
That's why coins taste weird. It's not the metal. It's all
just
the
from the number of people who've licked them.
It's all the finger grease.
All right. Jack, who are you?
Hey, I'm Jack. I go by Jack Kirby Crosby on the internet and in life. That's
handy when it's consistent like that.
Yeah, and I usually am a player, but more recently I've been playing as the DM for our most recent season. And in the real world, I am an artist for video games, so I make.
Hell yeah.
I endeavor to make games look pretty.
Nice, very cool.
Yeah.
Do you work in a more freelance capacity, or do you work for a particular company? Or?
At the moment, I'm working. I mean, like it's all kind of freelance, contract to contract sort of work. But for the moment, I'm working on a game called Summerhill, which is a sheep herding game for some UK folks from like ex-Altos. No.
Just wanted to play the odds.
Well, Devon actually. So
yeah, that makes sense. Really South Wales.
yeah. No, and the ex-Altos Odyssey folks. If people have heard of that game.
Alto. And I've heard of Abe's Odyssey.
No, different Odyssey.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just spent 2
Based
hours on
on-
Abe's Odyssey.
Based on the Odyssey, though, right?
It's based on the Odyssey, yeah. Abe's
like
Odyssey
Homer's-
was definitely.
Homer's, yeah.
Yeah. Alto's Odyssey is just Homer's Odyssey, but it's sung. It's sung by an alto.
Yeah.
No,
the
it's
entire-
all saxophone.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
collectively, you guys are the majority of, or some of, Dice Paper Roll. Who Dice Paper Roll people are not here? You mentioned before we went live that there is a Robert in Dice Paper Roll. Who else have you got?
Oh, Robert's our mascot.
Yeah.
Robert's the mascot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Unofficial mascot.
Yeah.
I see, I see.
Yeah.
Well,
Unofficial.
pretty
Well, I suppose
official.
We've sold badges.
Greg's the one who
of
does the
Robert.
admin, so he can
Yeah.
he can make it official.
Our sales records indicate he's pretty official.
Excellent.
But we're missing two. We're missing Lauren Bock, incredible comedian, performer, does a ton of live stuff and some great work in the burlesque space, and Emil Freund, who's a dude.
He'd like that.
Yeah. He is a dude. Like, he's a good
is a
dude.
dude.
He actually is.
Like, one of those guys where
and
like,
to be
yeah.
and to be clear, they are both on the call. I've just muted them and didn't want to show them because they're ugly as fuck.
Oh, no,
so I didn't.
Yeah.
That sounds about right for those guys.
Yeah.
Emil composes a lot of all of the original score in our first 2 homebrew seasons.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. Very cool. That's very exciting. Yeah, it was too big to have another Robert on stream. That's what somebody in the chat's saying. Yeah, that's right. So if you are here from Dice Paper Rolls community and you're here to watch this, and this is the first time seeing me, I'm Robert Hartley, GM. I'm a full-time Dungeons & Dragons TTRPG content creator. I'm most well known for being the DM for a comedy group called Viva la Dirt League. And that's mostly what I'm known for, but I also run D&D content full-time on my own channel right here. So welcome in. If you like this stuff, stick around. So we're going to be chatting today. No particular topics in mind. I just wanted to get you guys on and talk to you, because in the world of TTRPG, even though it is a very niche industry, people who are doing not only sort of entertainment things and like gaming things, but also Dungeons and Dragons things specifically, you'd think it would be pretty niche, and then you start getting into it full time and you realize there are thousands of people in this industry doing things, actual plays, podcasts, and you think you know everybody, and then you go to PAX and you meet somebody and you're like, what do you do? And you're like, oh, we run a successful D&D actual play podcast from Melbourne. And I go, cool, that sounds amazing, let's chat, so that I can actually get to know you guys. It's amazing just how many people keep popping up in the industry, and you're like, oh, you must be new, and then you look them up and they've got 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, and you're like, oh, how the fuck do I not know who you are? How is how is it possible for me to ever fully get the feeling like I know this industry if people are still just popping out completely unknown to me, but very known to everybody else?
Well, you're being very generous there. We're only at like 100,000, so
I was rounding up, 160.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah.
100,001. Yeah.
I remember when Greg first sort of mentioned the idea of recording our games, and sort of we were like, yeah, what? There must only be another 50, 100
Right.
D&D podcasts out there.
Yeah.
Let's
Oh my
do
god,
it.
this is such a great idea. No one's ever thought of this before.
It'll be really easy to make a name in this niche because no one's listening to actual play podcasts.
Oh, who's this Critical Role? They must be pretty amateur. Oh, shit.
They stole part of their name from us, by the way.
Yeah, they were originally called Critical Dice Paper Roll, and then they're like, well, it's like when you've got a wrestler who's like called Joe Blogs, but he's like Joe the Dog Blogs, and it's Critical Dice Paper Roll, and they just dropped that middle part.
Yeah.
We sent them a very strong cease and desist. They listened.
They bowed and
Let me
cowed,
tell you, Greg once studied law, so yeah,
He knows the legal speak.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So I guess that I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I like to start off a short rest with you guys helping me to sort of DM in this moment. If we're on a short rest, then we must be resting from something. So what mission are we on that required us to have a short rest? It could be something mundane, like we're helping the local alchemist to move shit around his shop, or it could be like we're epically on some space meteorite that's exploding and we need to stop it. What are we doing?
It's just a short rest between interdimensional adventures. We generally, for our live shows, do like an episodic sort of format where we're the crew of a Star Academy ship. So we've just travelled through a wormhole, and as we're travelling, we've taken the opportunity to replenish our spell slots.
So we're on some sort of interdimensional spaceship thing.
Yeah, the Lady Marmalade.
Yeah,
the Lady
the
Marmalade.
space,
Very good.
the space between worlds. You know, like some people like to make sure they get through the wormhole. We are dead bang in the middle. We're kind of spaghettified across dimensions.
We're currently spaghettifying across dimensions because what is time, right? They do say that as you speed up, time slows down relative to you. And so as you are getting towards the speed of light, time would essentially stop from your perspective.
Yeah.
And so we're very close to the speed of light heading through this wormhole. And so this short rest, we're actually only resting for a couple of seconds, but it feels like 2 hours.
That's right, yeah.
Which is what I hear a lot when people are talking to me, that it feels like 2 hours.
Don't you want to hear the opposite?
Usually I hear that from people on the bus.
Is it time up now? Are we done? Or...
Yeah, no, not yet for a long shot. So we're on our Lady Marmalade ship. What are we drinking and eating on this short rest? What do you guys? Do you have go-tos as your characters, or as when you're playing characters? Do you have go-to like things that you order from the local tavern or whatever?
I'm a bit of a fan of the odd cockatrice flap. It's like a kebab stick of cockatrice flaps, finely cooked and spiced. Delicious.
I do love a cock flap.
Great meaty neck flaps. Cockatrice, you get a good
with a side of dog's milk.
Nice.
Stop it, guys! I am getting hungry.
Yeah, I know.
Let's see. This feels sci-fi to be on a spaceship. I feel like it should be some sort of. I think I'm eating a space banana, which is just a banana but with space in front of it, obviously.
Branded.
And I think I'm drinking some kind of nebula, like a cocktail that like it's got edible glitter in it that sparkles like a nebula, like a cloud of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
And in real life, I'm just drinking water.
Yeah,
I play more exciting drinking.
I play a geriatric character in Percival, and he uses the replicator in the ship to full effect to make gruel, because that's all he can really digest.
Very much.
Is it Earl Grey and hot? Earl Grey.
Yes, yeah. I mix tea in just for some semblance of flavour, while not affecting my bowel movements, which are quite erratic.
A good friend of mine recently made Earl Grey ice cream, and it was really good, like really good, and that's all. That's the only anecdote.
No, keep going.
We're
gonna expand this. You're gonna need to find something. I want you to find something else to say about it.
It was smooth, buttery, and until he said Earl Grey, I could not place what that flavor was. And
did you try inverting the spoon and filling all 10,000 taste buds, and driving that flavor up the palate? Is this a reference that any of you are getting?
I've got it, yeah. And you got to get you got to aerate. You got to aerate.
Yeah. Spit it back out.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I'll do that next Christmas, I think.
Excellent.
I didn't know that was required for the tasting notes.
You really got to drive those vanilla flavors up. to the top of the palate. Anyway, enough of that shit.
You gotta work on your ice cream Meliere skills.
Yeah.
Nice. So tell me about the name of the podcast, Dice Paper Roll. We were joking about before. Where did it come from? Who decided it? Did you go through other iterations? How did it come about?
So many iterations. We brainstormed so many, and then we audience tested too. I went out and did survey. Like, we got this short list of names. I went out. One of our long-term supporters and patrons regularly gives me shit about it because we rolled out this like crowd testing on all these different names, and then we got back together and someone had come up with Dice Paper Roll, and we just threw all the rest out.
I like to say it was me. I'm pretty sure it was me, but because we
definitely Emil.
We love a good pun. There were a lot. What were some of the others that didn't make it? Awkward Encounters was one of them.
Oh yeah. Felt with orc.
Yeah.
Which is always wise marketing decisions to like put something that's just a complete homophone into a thing that's an audio medium, and then expect people to be able to spell it.
Yeah,
like roll.
You're not going to spend the entirety of your careers explaining which role it is.
Well, that's half our ads now. You got to allow a few seconds for that's roll with an E, ROLE. Like the other role, Critical Role, but not them. Go to Dice Paper Roll.
we already put one pun in, and then we're like, why just leave it with one pun? Let's do a second one and do it ROLE. Oh my god. Yeah,
it's very smart. So you're saying that you had this short list and then you didn't use Dice Paper Roll wasn't on the short list?
Nowhere near.
And I think we didn't decide on Dice Paper Roll until our first ever recording session when we were sitting around going, okay, we're going to have to introduce it. We're like, what are we going to call ourselves? And we did one final session and me or Emil came up with Dice Paper Roll.
There was a really long period of time where it was going to be Foreskin, and I was considering leaving. I was very much considering just like I like you guys, but I ain't sticking around.
That's because at the time, like Critical Role were doing their Force Grey, like Matt Mercer was doing those things, and then I think it must have been Emil came up with Foreskin.
And
but that's how Robert was invented.
Well, Emil is just like very. When he has his mindset on a thing, he can argue it through till the end of time. But then when Dice Paper Roll came along, he was like, "Oh, I really like that." So, yeah, thank goodness.
We were just happy that there was something that some of us agreed on, and we were so tired of arguing about it.
This is close enough to. We're not holding out for unanimous anymore. We
just have to record, please.
Do we remember any of the other shot lists?
They're in Slack, but we don't have the one that lets you go all the way back. No. Does anyone else remember? I just Awkward Encounters and Foreskin.
Our Slack is still called Foreskin. And it has a little. I drew a penis with a face on it, so it's still, which is our Robert character, because I got confused between Richard and Robert, and called it Robert.
I love that Richard makes sense as the dick, and you're like, don't see that connection at all.
It took Jack I think it was 2 years or something until he actually realized that it's actually Richard that is dick. Not Robert. And he just had this brainwave.
I've heard Robert's a dick a lot in my life.
We made the great decision to print up a bunch of enamel badges with Robert on them as part of the merch that we sell at live shows.
Great.
Very, very popular. Anyway, we've got plenty available if anyone wants to buy
love it.
All our other runs are finished, but that one, for some reason,
it's just for some reason there's plenty more enamel dicks with faces.
Lauren really doesn't like it as well, so we're trying to move the merch.
Yeah.
Lauren's very anti the Robert thing. Yeah.
But I think if we had a
should call it
Roberta to go
penis.
next to Robert, then she might ease up.
Yeah.
Well, we floated that and didn't seem keen.
No, she's not keen on
No.
a vagina either. So
no. But Emil, very cock positive.
yeah,
Good to know.
very, very positive.
Very Robert positive too.
Yeah.
So tell me about early days of Dice Paper Roll, even before Dice Paper Roll. Who was the first people involved to get together and decide this thing? Is anybody a later joiner, or are you all there from the beginning?
Yeah. So back. Let us cast our minds back.
We did that at the same time, Rob.
To the mystical days of the early 2000s. Ben and I worked together.
We're going way back. All right.
Yeah. Ben and
Quarter century, bro.
Yeah, Ben and I worked together at a theme park, and someone got word that I knew how to play Dungeons and Dragons, which was
third edition back then.
3.5.
No, it was second.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I only had the books for second edition.
And you were like, you said to Ben, I think this is 3.5.
I said to Ben, I am not letting go of Tharko. There is no way
they can't possibly come up with a better system.
This rule is just too good, right? So we played D&D together for years and years, and we got so deep into it that we used to call in sick to work because we'd stayed up so late playing D&D. Nice. Ben came down to Melbourne to study, and then a few years later, I moved down. First weekend I got here, it was like a Thursday, and Ben rings me up and he goes, "What are you up to this weekend?" It's like, mate, I literally, you're my only friend here. I've got no social life. And so we had a little game of D&D, and nice. He's like, "Great, you're running a game." We all got together, and it was us four and Emil and another friend of ours, Sammy. And we did a little campaign for a year. And I played a bunch of different games with people before, and performers, and but I had never laughed. I'd never laughed so much during a game of D&D, to the point with tears running down the face. And so I suggested, we should just chuck a mic in the middle of the room and record it, just bash it out, see if anyone's interested. And so Dice Paper Roll was born.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's the origin story of so many people who get into doing D&D stuff. Is just like, it was just so fun. It was so fun and so funny, and we just felt selfish keeping it to ourselves. So we're like, well, we gotta put it out there.
That's a really nice way of putting it, Rob. Like, I think,
not with a narcissistic bent of like, we're so good, we have to put it. We're doing people a service to put it out.
Yeah.
I was a little hesitant in the early days, though. I was like, we can't possibly release some of the shit that gets said at our table.
Oh my god!
Into the airwaves, and there was some serious editing at times earlier. I was like, guys, I think we need to cut this. But it sharpened up my editing chops pretty good. But now we're just like, nah. If you say it, it goes out.
People are expecting it after a certain while. You're like, hey, look, if they're around, if they've been listening, then they know what to expect.
If they're still with us, they know what Dice Paper Roll is.
I think doing the live shows as well kind of really let us sort of relax a bit more, and as well as also be conscious of what we're actually putting out there when we're playing. I think when you're isolated and around a table, you can throw out some pretty far out things to make your friends laugh, but then you're like, oh, maybe not the best the rest of the world to hear. And so, but then when you're doing it live, well, then you've got an audience there, so you have to be mindful of it anyways. Then I think, after releasing live shows and kind of being like, that's the product, consume it. I think Benny kind of also went a little bit like, well, if it's okay for the live show, it can be okay for the regular podcast as well.
I wanted to go back a little bit because Greg arrived in Melbourne with a game all set up, but like what's not said inside of that is the work that Ben did behind the scenes to get set up for that weekend, where he kind of approached me at a party. It was like, hey, have you ever heard of D&D? Because I'd been making a game that had some cards, or I was working on a game at the time called Armello that had some cards that were based on...
I've played that.
Yeah. It was based on Dungeons and Dragons, like a lot of the cards and stuff, the spells that you can get are based on D&D. And I had no idea. I didn't really know that.
Right.
I was pretty junior at the time, and Ben was like, "Yeah, no, so a lot of this is from D&D," and I was like, "Oh, really? I've always been a little bit curious in D&D about D&D," and Ben was like, "Oh, yeah, really?
That's curious, eh?
Yeah, you should. I've got a friend coming down, and
first taste is free.
First one's free."
Yeah, and I imagine Ben had just been. It was probably like an episode of, I don't know, like Game of Thrones or something, where he's out there sort of rallying the troops to get around the table.
Recruitment.
Yeah.
It's like that montage that we see in movies of like somebody's like doing something on the street that's appropriate, and then it like cuts across and there's like the Nick Fury's type, and he's just kind of watching. It's just Ben like smoking leaning up against the wall or something, and then he flicks his cigarette away and walks over to them, and it cuts away to somebody else. Son of a bitch.
But but all credit to Ben, like really excellent at putting together a group of what has become friends, because a lot of us didn't know it. Well, I didn't know these guys. Yeah. And like I think Emil, Dan, and Ben went to drama school together. But yeah, very.
Yeah,
So your introduction to D&D was the first time playing with what was Dice Paper Roll, or what became Dice Paper Roll?
Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, me growing up, like my first introduction really was probably like playing Heroes Quest as a kid. I don't think that I see a couple of blank faces. Heroes Quest was like a bit of a
heard of it, like never played it.
It's like a board game version of D&D, where it's a bit more simplified, not as like kind of wide branching and imagination as D&D, but more of a tabletop board game kind of version of it. And I played that as a kid, and so that was always like kind of like, oh, cool, that's kind of like what D&D is. And then I grew up and no one knew how to play D&D until I went to drama school, and I met Ben, and then he was like, hey, I reckon you'd like D&D. You ever wanted to play D&D before? I'm like, yes, I've always wanted to. Oh my god, I'm such a nerd.
That's awesome.
And then
we didn't play much though. I really teased them, like, because we were so busy at drama school. We did one game 1 year and then one game the year after. It was just found it tricky to put time into writing anything, and we found it tricky to get time to run something. So when Greg came, it was like,
that's how you get them hooked, right? The first one's free, and then you don't give them enough to satiate them. There's always one more. Keep telling them that, oh, maybe I'll set up a game, just to keep them on the hook.
They were all mad jonesing for it when I got there. They were like, oh yeah.
Come on, man.
Well, Emil and I moved into Benny's house as well. So then there was the three of us living in the one house. That's where we played D&D. It's where we started making the podcast. And it was like that first year of making the podcast, it was just like 24/7. Like at our house, at least, it was like I'd be speaking with Benny about like, things that I'm thinking for my next DM campaign, and then like, oh, Emil's making the music, and then I'm doing character stuff, and it was just like, oh, we got to write poems because we made our previously on Dice Paper Roll, we decided we're going to do it in all poem form. Yeah. So then we have to sit around and write a poem about what happened in the last episode. And it was just like everything. It was just like for a year non-stop was just,
yeah, we did 47 episodes back to back, no break, released weekly.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
So it was a pretty full on year. Yeah.
And what sort of, like, early days, those first few episodes, did you start with like a backlog so that you could throw them all up at once? Kind of
yeah, we actually recorded probably, I think we recorded our first 18 eps across maybe 3 different sessions, 3 or 4 sessions. Like we would just play for 4 hours and we'd play episodically, so we'd get up and have a break in between eps. And then, I think we were about that far in before we started releasing and started being able to listen to what we had. So then all the feedback we were getting, people were like, hey, you should try this. Hey, your mics aren't great. And we're like, we know you've got to wait 18 episodes to get through it.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, isn't it? There's like a double-edged sword with podcasting, because I had a podcast for a year and I was looking into all like, how do you make it successful as a podcast? And a lot of people were like, oh, start with a backlog so that people can find it, binge it, they can like get hooked on it and stuff before they get to a point where they like then tune in weekly to actually wait for the episodes. But at the same time, if you the more backlog you have, the more time it is, as you say, before people go, oh, here's a problem with episode 1, and you're like, shit. One of the other advices I got often was like, oh, just record a whole bunch of stuff and then scrap it and just go again.
That's better advice.
Learn what you're doing by doing it, and then go, okay, that was a test. We're never going to release that to the public. Here's actual stuff that we're going to put out with decent quality audio and things.
Nah, we'll release anything to the public, Rob.
Any old shit, we'll roll it out.
Yeah.
It's all about content.
Yeah, everything is content.
Yeah.
So those very early days you had... Sorry, cut somebody off.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and that's why we've only got 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah, it's only 101, yeah. It's been stagnant at 100 for years.
Yeah.
Those first 18 episodes got you 100,000 immediately. And then as soon as the audio changed, people were like, nah, this isn't like their old stuff.
Oh, no, not this quality. I can't...
Yeah. I missed the static.
I liked it when it was raw.
I missed the room noise. Yeah. I missed the sound of the Domino's delivery driver right now.
I miss them leaving in just the conversation in the background because the DM just kept talking over the top of it as the guy went to answer the door.
Yeah.
So
it was actually,
but actually, though, yeah.
It was actually kind of a fun evolution of the podcast, though, in that sense, because we started, and Greg was very sensible. I was like, oh, let's just get proper mics now. And he's like, no, let's just make sure we like doing this first before we drop $100. And we're like, oh, yeah, good point. So we started with a little Blue Yeti mic in the middle that we all sat around for the first 3 eps. And we also realized that you can't really or shouldn't really do a podcast with miniatures and battle maps and stuff because you get a little bit too into that world. So then we switched to Theatre of the Mind, and then we got lapel mics, and then we saved up, and our subscribers and patrons already at that point were helping us to put in, but we put in a bit of cash to get the microphone upgrade, and then we got the headphones. Once we got headphones, it was like, oh, we're actually listening to each other now, and we're not talking over the top as much, and we got the pod cave, and well, we talk less. I think less, maybe.
Yeah.
And then we did live shows, and we're like, whoa, people are actually listening to this, and they're coming along, and they love it, and then that helped us. Yeah, it's just moved into more of the improv kind of side of things a bit more.
One of the things I liked about your website was that you've got like a where should you begin kind of a suggestion thing of like helping people to know, hey, we've been going since 2017 you started, and so we've got a lot of content and it can be overwhelming. And I think one of the problems that a lot of actual plays face is that they have these however long episodes, even if, because at Viva we do half-hour content. We film for an entire table session, 4 hours or whatever. We chop it into half-hour content, so it's bingeable and you can keep up with it every week. And it's not like, oh, here's another 4-hour episode this week that you're gonna have to find time for. But even at half-hour content, we're 217 episodes into the main campaign. It's been going for about 5 years, and it's overwhelming for people to find that and go, oh, I'm going to catch up. And so you've got to have that on ramp. You've got to have a recap. So you've got to have like hey, it's okay to jump in at this point, and like tell people you don't have to start at episode 1. So I really liked that you guys do a similar thing of like, hey, we've done one shots, we've done different arcs of different series. If you want to see them in, it was like 70 episodes or something, that first campaign.
Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah.
And you can and you like tell people like you can watch it, but you know it's be aware it's 70 episodes and it's a commitment.
And you know that was all planned from the get-go. Like we were like really clear like from the get-go, we're gonna do one season and then a second season, and then we're gonna put that story on hiatus for 5 years, and then
it's all thought out constructively.
Yeah.
For sure.
I feel like in 2020 something's going to stop us from recording that, so we're just going to leave that, have a 5 year hiatus.
Yeah, I was about to say it's a refreshing experience to chat to somebody and for one of these short rests that actually got started before the pandemic and not because of it. So many companies, not just actual plays, but like dice companies and like people who just do tangentially related TTRPG stuff. So many people I talked to got started during the pandemic and because of it, because they were like, well, I was working as a whatever else, and then I got fired, so I got made redundant, and I had a lot of time on my hands, and I started enjoying my hobbies more, and so I started playing D&D more, and then I got into blah blah blah, and it's remarkable. So it's quite nice to be like, oh, you actually started, you actually were well established in doing what you were doing before the pandemic hit. So So tell me about that. Like, what happened in regards to your creation of Dice Paper Roll during late 2019, early 2020?
Well, we'd started in person playing so much, and it became, because the three of us lived together, Dan and Emil and I, and you know we'd make full days of it, and we'd stop for lunch and we'd cook up big feasts. It was a real social kind of thing, which is what D&D had always been for us, you know, and particularly those of us who've been playing for 20 plus years before you really could do it too much on the internet. And then with people in the room for live shows, and I guess 2020 rolled around and we got to play a whole lot more. And that introduced us to a different aspect of how we play and listen to each other and let people have the ball when they're playing and speaking. It's kind of like, you know, we learned to do it online, which I think has been more difficult, but again served us when we play in person as well. So Greg took the D&D, the DM mantle, helm of power, and ran us through Curse of Strahd in a very, very fun campaign. However, it's worth noting too, the first episodes of that were actually when we came out of lockdown in Melbourne. So we'd been in lockdown for 6 months or something, and we were actually allowed out.
No,
so
it was
we
that
played
first one. It was the first. It was the sourdough lockdown. You know, the one where the whole world was locked down. Everyone's like, "This is great!
Yeah, this is fantastic!" Everybody was loving it, that first one.
But we socially distanced. We set up the mics, and we didn't have a table, and we kind of were like all 1.5 meters apart in the same room. But we got pretty loose because we were like, we're together again.
Yeah.
I felt like it had been longer than the first lockdown. Anyway,
no, it was a very short. Now that we know how long a lockdown,
relatively.
Yeah.
Then we went back into
I remember going into it in like late March here in New Zealand, and people were like, I wonder if it'll be over by Easter, by like mid-April. Like, no. I think we're good.
Maybe not
for a while.
Yeah.
See, I think we played most of that campaign in lockdown, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like the entirety of it was
all 40
online. But yeah, I think it was interesting in terms of, as Ben was saying, like just how it actually developed us as players, because you know you're online, so sometimes someone's internet kind of lags a little bit or whatever, and then they've missed a bit of information, or someone was talking and then you're trying to like piece together what it was that they were trying to say. But so I think then it made us really attentive and really aware of when it was like our turn to speak. and that kind of thing. And sometimes you need to, bullhorn yourself in there a little bit, especially with Emil and Greg around. But then once we actually came out of lockdown and then started playing again, I mean, it's now opened up the fact that online recording is a thing, and it actually makes it a lot more easier to get everybody together than having that whole, we're going to have a big Sunday and it's going to go for 5 hours, and get everyone to be able to do that at the same time. It's pretty difficult, but doing it online is a bit easier.
Everybody always talks about how easy scheduling a D&D game is.
Yeah, for 6 adults, that's easy. But also during that time, it's worth noting, like, Greg moved up to interstate for a little while, so we kind of kept on doing the online, and then now has a little one running around, has a child, so that now he's a dad. Like things have happened. We've been moving into states, becoming parents.
I feel like you should have really thought about the Dice Paper Roll timeline before making that decision.
We asked him. We tried to ask him, but he just wouldn't.
Not a team player.
No, I just...
We tried to get him to name his child Robert, but he wasn't about it.
Listen, guys, it was an accident, all right? So please don't watch this, son.
It's a happy little accident, as Bob Ross would say. There's a Bob. There's a Bob. There's a Robert.
That's another Bob.
I will say one thing about the online that I love, though, as the editor, is it's way cleaner and easier to edit when you've got, there's one track that joke got trodden over a bit. We'll just make space for it a little bit more, or we just turn that one down, and you don't have all the noise bleeding in the background from when you're all in the same room together.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you? I was going to say, do you miss out on the things that you get in person D&D, more like the full body language and things? But I suppose for an audio podcast, you don't necessarily want to rely on body language and things, because if you are missing it through online stuff because you can't see them, you know that your audience would be missing it as well because they can't see them.
Yeah, from an audience perspective, it I don't think it affects, but for mine, like watching each other's cues about when there is space to jump in or when something's petering off is I found it much more difficult online than in the room, and that I feel like that took us some time to adjust, but like the boys are saying, it was such a great learning opportunity for us because Dan just talks over the top of me all the time, and no, that we were sort of jumping over the top of each other in a a frenzy to get that joke in or get that commentary in, and it really made us like much more aware of leaving space and slowing down. So it was I feel like going online was a great journey, and like you say, now we record the vast majority of our content online simply because it's so much easier for us to organize time together on a Sunday evening.
So when you started having all these sort of realizations and changes to the way you were doing things, the better quality mics and things, the better quality of leaving space for each other and things, I imagine that you look back on your vast catalogue of stuff and have favourites that work for various different things, various different reasons, or even just the story themselves and stuff. Do you guys have particular favourites of your one-shots and campaigns that you've run?
Oh, so many.
Yeah. Which ones would you suggest? Which is your personal suggestion for where people start?
Oh, it's tricky, right? Because all of them are quite different for their own reasons. I think as a whole, the Curse of Strahd campaign is sensational. Like there's some really great character moments, and during that we really learned how to mix the horror and lean into the horror and the drama, but then just break it with some comedy and in our kind of loose, silly style. But then like the live shows, some people really don't like listening to D&D like audio, what's normally an actual play podcast. They don't like the live versions, whereas some of our live shows are the most downloaded episodes that we have, whether that's because it gets more publicity, not sure. So it's hard to say, but I reckon if you're going to jump in, you just want a taste of us, it would be episode 26 of book 1, which is I think the first time
25, I think.
I 25 or 26. I'll have a look in a sec.
Dog's
but
milk?
it's the dog's milk episode. But that's when we get to the city in our campaign, and I think we just really, it's early on, new mics, pod cave, we're all listening, and we're just really, Greg didn't really have a plan for the game, which is not like Greg at all. And we just improvised for the whole time, and I think we went, oh, hang on, this is what Dice Paper Roll might be, and it's a pretty fun, just shopping episode, basically. But it's good, and then I think the mix of the sound effects and the music underneath it, it's just a nice little intro episode, I think.
That's good to know. How about the rest of you?
I think I'd reiterate what Ben's said about I think the Curse of Strahd campaign, for myself, because it has like one of my favorite characters that I ever did, and it just had so much fun playing that character. Hans von Suchensuch, he's very funny. But it was that like kind of mix of we really started to kind of get into what these characters were actually feeling, and then undercutting that with comedy and that sort of thing, and I felt like it's a really good balance, and I think that's when we really kind of got into our stride. We'd been doing the in-person, we'd done a bunch of live shows, and then we started something new and fresh, and then it was like I felt like all those other elements of it really come together. But I mean, as Benny said, some of the live shows, if you just want, it's one episode, that's it. There's you don't have to go through all the back catalog to know exactly what's happening. We have like kind of little references, or maybe there might be an overarching story, but they're all individually contained episodes where it's just kind of like
we do have some holiday one shots as well, though, and we came up with a character named Burke, who's this 5 heads on one body. And it was actually born when Lauren Bock decided to DM for us, and she was like, you are brothers, 4 brothers, all on the head of one body. And we were just like, yes, please, because she thought that would be easier to control us, because she'd never DM'd before. And it just made it worse, because every head had to say something. So we've got a couple of Halloween eps with Burke. Each Burke is spelt differently as well, like BYRK and BU.
Good for an audio medium.
Oh, it's so good at spelling.
Another great idea for an audio.
They're up there on the site. They're pretty fun, but also very silly.
It is 25. It is episode 25.
Sorry, yes, you're right. Snatches new pants. I just checked on that too.
I'd personally recommend our most recent season, Feywild, which we call Into the Feywild, which I'm the DM for, so I'm biased, but I do think it's sort of it is our most
best
recent
story, and it's the one that's run best. I feel like it's got the best pacing.
That's right, and like the DM is particularly good in this one. So no, but I do think it's kind of like a culmination of all the lessons we've learned from previous seasons and live shows, and I really love the characters that these fine fellows have created as well. And there's
how closely to Wild Beyond the Witchlight are you actually sticking? Is it actually following that or not?
Somewhat, but it's very quickly diverging. Like it's not like we're still making it at the moment, and I'm adding stuff and and also having to because it's my first time DMing a long form campaign. Like I've only basically DM'd at live shows prior to this. It's been kind of like early on I was kind of trying to stick to the book, and as a result, like a good like how many episodes are we at now? I can't even remember.
27.
like 20 of those episodes are like the first chapter. And so it's probably going to condense a bit from here on in.
I've only once. So we did a Dragonlance campaign on a friend's channel, Rackham GM Workshop, and he ran us through the entire campaign, and then afterwards we went through like an epilogue sort of session, an epilogue stream of like how much of this was actually the campaign and how much was your own creation. And he's like, oh, that main character that ended up as the BBG, not in the campaign at all. Like, I made that up based on your backstory, and I made this up, and this person is in the campaign, but kind of I changed them and changed their name and changed the gender and whatever, and like made it fit my own story, and this changed and that changed and this changed, and I was like, oh, so all the best bits of this campaign were your own. And then and that's the only time that I've even finished an actual campaign book. And that's as close as we got. Like every other time that I've ever been a player in a campaign, it gets through the first chapter and then it diverges into homebrew almost immediately.
I mean, I
guess it just happens.
I reckon they must write it that way, because I reckon like the last few chapters they kind of just
they just give up. they're like we don't know. We've no possible way of knowing what your campaign looks like by the time it gets to this point.
They're like, you're not going to get to this. You and I both know this.
We both know.
We've got to fill the book.
Either your life gets in the way and your campaign just trickles off and never finishes, or if it does finish, it's diverged into some sort of space fantasy now because somebody accidentally put a bag of holding inside of a sphere of annihilation and you had to improvise, and now they're in the astral sea.
Exactly. So I was sort of hoping that would happen anyway, and I think with a lot of our shows, it is always about the performance of the characters and the relationships between those characters anyway. Like that's kind of first and foremost what we tend to care about. So I think, and that's why I particularly love this campaign.
How long of a duration do you usually go for with your episodes?
About an hour.
And is that like a thing that you've had from the beginning? You were like, let's make it an hour longer so it's more digestible?
More digestible, easier to edit. Like the longer it was, the more time it would take me to edit, particularly in the early days. Because I'm quite meticulous. I've let go of that a bit more now because we've been at it for so long, and I do a job that's much more time demanding. But yeah, about an hour.
Do you record for an hour and then edit it down to whatever it ends up becoming, or do you record over an hour knowing that you'll edit it down and try and aim for an hour?
No, we try to stick to the hour in general, which has kind of been an interesting exercise when you DM like that, because we have kind of developed. You do try to kind of end on a cliffhanger if you can, and we sort of get better as a group of kind of being like, all right, well, this is where we are, and we're about 10-15 minutes in, so someone will drive the story forward, or they'll just keep pushing the action forward.
It's really useful. Like as soon as you guys said that many of you had gone to drama school, I was like, this makes sense as to why they've achieved success in an actual play industry, because I find a lot of people who do the actual play stuff are like, oh, we're having fun in a home game, therefore that will translate to a successful story that people want to listen to. It's like, that's not there's a difference between making something for an audience that people are going to want to listen to in terms of your pacing, your character arcs, your expectations of beginning, middle, end, your 3-act structure, all this stuff. And I think a lot of people don't, unless you've got a background in storytelling, filmmaking, creative writing, something like that, you just don't know those things, and so you can spend the entire session talking to an NPC and not doing anything per se.
Yeah, but you learn those things. Like that doesn't mean just because you didn't train that you can't figure it out along the way. And I think
it just means it'll take you longer to learn it by practice rather than learning it through some guy at drama school telling you.
We certainly learned along the way as well, though, I think, because when we would have the breaks in between episodes, we would break it down and sort of talk about what worked and what we could do better. And it's been an ongoing thing over years, I think, really, to be like, oh, what did we like about that? How could we make it better? And then as we said earlier, like moving to live shows and then back to just being us, and how you can kind of focus on that kind of stuff was super helpful.
I think the live shows really honed that in for us, like of what is the story that we're trying to tell this audience. Because I think as well, you know, sometimes when you're in a podcast and you're sitting around a table and you're recording something, you're doing it for you, the people in front of you who are the people who are a part of it, and then you send it out, and then it's like, oh, people actually like this. But when you've got an audience that are sitting there that have paid $20 to see your show, you're like, well, we want to give this story to you. And then we did a lot of playing around in the sort of early days of doing live shows of, you know, yes, it's collaborative storytelling. So how can we bring the audience into this collaborative storytelling as well in a way that's not like, hey, you in the front row, give us this, like, you know, where then spotlight on this person. It's like, we don't want to do that. So we did I did shows where I got audiences to write down like monsters or famous people or a situation and put it in a hat. And it was like, and I'd just pull it out in the middle of a live show. And then it's like, oh, that's the suggestion that I gave kind of thing. And so that then people, we tried to really bring more and more of the audience into the storytelling. And now I
appreciate it that you've thought about that, because I feel like that's another problem that some folk have of like forgetting what medium you're using and why you're using that medium. And like when I started doing D&D on Twitch, I was like, why would I do it on Twitch and not YouTube? Twitch is interactive. Twitch has got that live chat element. So if I'm not using them, why is it on Twitch? And so I came up with Twitch Tales, which is my interactive D&D game where I'm the only person on stream and the entire chat is hive mind controlling the actions of the main character. And it presents certain challenges of like, everybody has to agree on what we're doing, and sometimes that comes down to lots of polls and decisions. And I've got yes emote and a no emote that people can put as just like a visual, like I can see at a glance. The majority of you are saying yes, let's do it. So then the character does it, and everybody else then has to go, no, we shouldn't have done that. It's like, well, we went with the majority. Welcome to democracy. And so, and so it's a fun and unique experience, but it leads to these like fantastic sort of in-depth stories that we can tell together. But I do appreciate when I can see that somebody's gone, they've really acknowledged the fact that they are using a live audience, so why would they do it live in front of an audience if they're not going to use the audience in some way?
I mean, like if you're in Melbourne, in April, you should come by and check out some of our live shows because they are quite unique.
And I think one of the other great things about the live shows is that you know that with a podcast you can be like, we've got time to get to that thing that didn't come up this episode, we can do it next episode. But in a live show you're like, this is the one time that these people have paid to see us, and it has to be a self-contained story, so I need to be aware of the pacing and the 3-act structure and the whatever else that's happening, so that it feels like a satisfying conclusion when we get to the end of it. So tell me about like the live shows and how they came about.
All right. 3-act structure.
What is that thing? Hero's journey? What are you talking about?
Audience satisfaction unknown.
Ooh, this is really good stuff. I'm glad.
So glad we've talked to you, Rob. Like, jeez.
Tell me about your live shows. How did they first come about, and did you sell out the first ones, or were you like performing to a zero audience in those first few?
It was Emil's idea, I think, to do a live show. We hadn't even thought of it, and we got a spot in a themed bar upstairs. This little, very small room. It was like 40 people on stools.
Was it themed in anything related to?
It's like an Alice in Wonderland theme. So the whole wall had these like giant bookends on it, and it's got like chandeliers. And it's quite
better
whimsical.
that than like a sports themed bar, it's D&D and upstairs in a sports bar.
It's called Storyville. If you're ever in Melbourne, it's pretty cool little place to check out.
Yeah. And so those first shows, we had people in. It wasn't.
No, it was mostly sold out. Like, yeah.
40 or 50 people.
40.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Like, how were you doing your marketing? Like, how was it being? How did you get those 40, 50 people? Was that already like far into the podcast, and you already had a decent established audience?
Yeah, that and strong arming friends and family.
Yeah. When you've got 6 people in the cast, you can get 40 people by just being like, look, everybody has to bring 5 people to this show.
Yeah, it was about a year after we'd started releasing, so I think most of them, friends and family, and a couple of kind of Melbourne-based listeners, I think.
I promised all my team at work a pay rise if they came.
And they're still waiting as well.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Also, I think just like the D&D community goes up, like, because we're doing it in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, and everyone in Melbourne goes along to that, or at the very least you'll get the guide and you'll have a bit of a skim through and see what's happening. And particularly at that time in Melbourne, it was just like, and still kind of like, where there's not really many
D&D
like
things.
Groups doing D&D stuff, so people are like, oh, we want to go out and see some stuff for the comedy festival, and then it's like, oh, there's a D&D thing, great, and the whole party shows up, and it's 4 random people that you're like, oh, cool, there's some random D&D group saw us in the guide and showed up, and we also did a lot of hustling on the streets. We were like trying to do flyering, and this came at when we went to Adelaide Fringe. Adelaide Fringe Festival.
That was rough.
Yeah,
and it was rough.
Adelaide was rough.
Not so sold out there.
No,
the
show was like.
What do you put that down to? Is it just a very different audience in Adelaide?
No, the show was way outside of the venue was way outside of the area. Right. We were also we went on stage at 10 o'clock. So, it was it was buck wild. Yeah. And we had such low numbers.
Yeah, there was a few shows where it was like 2 people in the
there was more people on stage.
I was going to say, like, I wonder if you beat my record. I think you did. I think when I was pursuing acting as a career, the lowest audience I've ever performed to, I think, was 3 people in the entire auditorium, and I was like, whoa, this is rough. I was doing Shakespeare.
The best thing is like where they sit.
Right, and they were spread the fuck out.
There was 2 people, one sitting like front of the front row, the other one sort of like off to the right, like somewhere in the back, like, and they're just sitting there going like, oh, I don't know about this.
It's awkward as an audience member when there's only 1 or 2 other people in there. There's so much pressure on you to be like, oh, I've got to really make sure they know I'm liking it, but what if I don't?
Super loud. Exactly. That is funny. Clap, clap, clap. Stamping.
We had a couple of big turnouts there because we did a lot of like communication and flyering with the gaming community there. But after the first show, I think they were kind of like, yeah, cool. They liked it, but they also, I don't think, were as aware that it's a different show every single time. It's not the same show every night when we do a live season. It's totally different. Different guest, different DM, different story. So then we learned from that, we've got to actually really plug that a bit more. And how do you get people to come along to more than one show? And
I did one during that run that was like, I didn't do any prep at all. Like, it was just like making it up on the spot. And at the end of that, I think that was the one where we had 2 people in the audience. And at the end of that, I just like burst into tears in front of Greg and just hugged him because it was so awful.
That's just horrible. How long are your live shows usually?
Like about 2 hours now. We do a 2 hour with an interval now, and that's after a lot of testing. So we did 1 hour shows for a while. Adelaide was 1 hour format.
You can't get much into 1 hours. We do that. That's the problem they do at PAX Australia too often. There's like it's a charity stream and it's a 1 hour thing. It's like it's charity stream and it's a 1 hour thing, so it's already disrupted by there's donations happening that you have to stop and acknowledge, and then you've also got you You're like, introduce the characters, and then I guess I'll just throw you into the main story, and this is what's happening, and then roll, and then roll, and then invariably whoever's set up the thing has been like, more people means more audience, because there's more individual like guest stars, and so each person's bringing their own audience to it, and so I've got 6 different people playing for this 1 hour game.
And that's why
that's all the time we have, because we've actually only got 50 minutes, not an hour, because it's 5 minutes after for audience and 5 minutes before for pack out.
Yeah.
We're notorious for like long intros too. Ben just honestly just goes on and on. And on. Now and the first button is gold. And the second one, so we usually do it like a 20-minute intro where we're just talking smack and making each other laugh and introing the characters. So and particularly on a live show with a guest comedian. So it just was not working at all. But
we've tightened it up now. It's like 10 minutes. Just if there's anyone listening that's like wants to.
They're like, oh, I don't want a 20-minute intro. We've got a nice tight 10 minutes. Have you, did you try the 3-hour, the 4-hour format, and was like, that's too much, that's too long, people aren't listening?
No. No, we've never done anything that. I just think a live show that long, it's a long time to sit in a theater space.
I mean, these days though, people most movies are 2.5 hours, 3 hours these days. Which feels a little long.
Do people go to the movies anymore for that long when you can do it at home and pause it and get up and get your own food?
They do. Ben, they do. They do. I've been to the movies more recently and they do come out.
Maybe I'm just getting old.
I went and saw Wicked like the other week, and that's like 3 hours, and it was only part 1. And I was like, they've done a stage show.
Yeah.
The stage show doesn't go for 6 hours, people.
Yeah. I was like, how have you made it longer than the show that it's based on?
I know. What?
It was good though. Wicked was good.
It is very good.
Yeah, it was very good, but still.
I went to the movies recently too. Saw Sonic 3. It was that was 90 minutes, and it felt long.
Yeah, I could have told you that from the title. It's like however long it is, it's gonna feel longer.
Just thank God Jim Carrey's back. That's all I.
He finally got his golden script written by angels.
Exactly.
Isn't he in it twice now as well? Like, isn't that the new thing? He's in it.
He came back because he got paid twice. Right.
I'm just seeing in the comments some people saying their attention span could never do 4 hours, and I think that's also why we don't do that long. I mean, Greg and I kind of scoff at that because back in the day we would play for 10, 12 hours, like right to the middle of the night or early morning. But I mean, we were spring chickens back then and didn't have proper jobs or families and responsibilities. But 4 hours would be too long for us now, I think.
I think like 4 hours, because with the format that we've like created for ourselves, kind of sticking to an hour and a half, you know, like we are off to the races. It's like chucking in puns, making jokes, doing character building stuff, world building stuff, and it's just like especially in a live show where you're then trying to catch an audience up, do the intros, like you have to sort of go at like a bit of a breakneck speed as it is. And I think if we were to do something that was like 3-4 hours long, I think we'd have to overhaul our way of playing D&D, because we like doing that rapid fire, jumping in, making jokes, making each other laugh. And I think that's 2 hours. To do that for 3-4 hours would be so exhausting. I'm wrecked after doing like an hour and a half show, you know? And especially when you're DMing and you're like getting some random fucking things that are happening, people talking to doors and, you know, all weird sort of things. And you're like trying to keep up with all these weird offers, and then you're still trying to bring it back. I think, to do a 3-4 hour show, we'd have to like slow our whole sort of process right down, so that then we would have the performance energy to outlast that whole 3-4 hours, which I think then, you know, and I think like, you know, people like Critical Role and that sort of thing that do that, like, I think that's the sort of pacing that they sort of sit in, where it's you throw out a joke here and there, but it's not the players can sit back. You know.
Tell me about your... Also... Sorry, go
on. We've over the years we've kind of like pared back the rules of D&D. Like it's
I was gonna ask like what your 5th edition.
Yeah, and like. Yeah, technically 5th edition, but like even when I'm DMing, because I can't be bothered reading the player's hand. What is it? The player's handbook or the
what is it?
I can't be bothered reading the title. I can't be bothered. Like I got as far as this, and that was enough. And then I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, mine doesn't even.
Who's got the time?
Like that.
Who's got the time to finish it?
It's so long, so many words.
But Jack is a fine example of you do not have to have read any of the rule books to be a wonderful dungeon master.
That is true.
But yeah, like I think it's kind of like part of the live shows has seeped back into the regular show, in not just like our performance, but also we don't have time to like tell an audience how D&D works, really. Yeah. So, it's basically just one dice that we play with, and then it's kind of and that simplifies things immensely. And because I can't be bothered reading, it makes my job a lot easier as well.
A while ago,
like, hey, do you want to do a thing? Roll, and if it's a high number, I'll let it happen.
Yeah,
basically,
exactly.
Yeah, a while ago we dropped character sheets at live shows because we were like on stage stools with tables and stuff. We're shuffling paper, and the dead air that you feel in recording when you're adding up numbers, that on stage is excruciating, right? Like you just can't have that sort of lull. And so as soon as we can't. Well, we can't. No, it's just too insecure. Yeah. So when we removed the character sheets, it just improved the flow of the show so much more. And we got so like, we even like mess with initiative now, and it's really just about like, how does this combat feel narratively? Where is the good high point here to sort of finish this battle? So this, I've always been pretty liberal with the rules, and particularly around hit point totals, right? So, if in my mind, you always want that combat to end on a good note, on like a heroic ending. And when we brought that into the live show, it just enhanced combat so much. We were flying through it. It still felt engaging. It was interesting.
I've always talked about how I do hit points is similar. Like I don't think it's right to completely ignore or make up or improvise the hit points as you go, because so many of the mechanics of the game are about hit points. And so what's the point of a barbarian's brutal or his rage or anything? Sorry, back to Robert's lessons. Like, what's the point of a barbarian's rage doing extra damage or his hit points, or what's the point of choosing this weapon over that weapon if the hit points don't matter at all? But at the same time, I don't want to be as rigid as like, you finally got through this guy's 25 armor class, and it's your mentor turned evil, and you slaughter him for 63 damage, but he's still got 1 hit point left. So the wizard finishes him off with a magic missile. Like, so I've always had a window of hit points. Like, I look at the hit dice of a monster, and I go, what's the minimum that their hit points could be if they rolled 1 on all those hit dice? And what's the maximum it could be if they rolled max on all those hit points? Before they hit the minimum, you're not going to kill them no matter what. And after you get them past their maximum, they're going to die no matter what. But in that window, I'm going to kill them whenever it feels story narrative. Like, if the guy who's like, it's your boss at the end of your arc, this is your mentor or whatever, you're going to get the killing blow. It's just if you don't attack him in that window and the barbarian just does so much damage that it gets him to a max, I'll be like, fuck it, the barbarian gets to kill him.
But you're also a mathematician though, right, Rob? Like So, like, you actually like numbers, and
I do love numbers. Yes.
Yeah,
None of
Numbers
us
are my
do.
friends.
yeah.
None
think-
of us do. Yeah, but
I
I think
barely
that's
know them.
no. I've never met them. But that's part of our journey, like what we were talking about before, about like understanding like the 3-act structure and the narrative. Like when we started, there was this real push and pull for us around like how true do we stay to Dungeons and Dragons, how accurately do we present this, and we held ourselves to like really high standards around that. We used to beat ourselves up when we stuffed up a rule. Me,
Some
mostly.
of us did.
And as we sort of went along, for us, the focus with the live shows and everything, the focus just really became the story.
Yeah.
And so we, you know, and the story and the laughs, right? And so we've just found it like more beneficial to back off from those rules and just really just focus on telling that story
Has there been a conscious choice to stick with Dungeons and Dragons regardless, though, is because it's got the name? It's the Kleenex of TTRPGs, and so it's got that brand name, and saying, oh, we're going to be playing not Pathfinder, bad example, but like we're going to be playing some other like less crunchy number system.
Well,
it's just not going to have the same appeal, or.
As we said earlier, like, I don't like reading, so
you don't want to have to read another one-page RPG.
Another book? Like, are you kidding? No.
So it's just easier
another
to say,
book just sit on my shelf and gather dust? No, I don't have room for that. Yeah, we've never really spoken about it, have we? I think we just love the setting.
There are plenty of systems out there that are super not number crunchy. In fact, there's there's systems out there where you don't roll any dice at all. It's like,
well, we kind of do that already, but I think it's just I don't know. It's not really been conscious discussion around it, has there?
Well, we've talked about the brand recognition of Dungeons and Dragons, definitely, and that's that's been something we've been aware of. But yeah, we're not big rules readers as a whole. Some of us are right into it, and I guess it comes down to that. Like there's a I don't know if you've had them on the show, but Roll to Cast switch.
Yeah, a friend of mine.
Yeah, they're fantastic, right? And they switch game systems each campaign. And we certainly like floated it around, but it's literally taken 8 years to teach Jack and Emil how to play Dungeons and Dragons in a vague way. So I'm not not up for the challenge of anything new, frankly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair. It's entirely fair. Tell me about your audience and the growth that you've seen over time. Like, how long into the podcast starting to release back in 2017 did you actually start to see people caring about it?
Pretty low at the start. It took a little while for it to get rolling, didn't it?
Yeah, I think so. We were kind of buoyed quite early. We entered a competition. I don't remember who it was through, but we were in like the top, I don't know, if maybe it was 10 or 20 for like a best new podcast or something. And I think that really buoyed us and motivated us early. And we also, I think, talked about it and decided we didn't want to focus too much on the numbers.
I mean, imagine if we had, though. Oh, we'd be so much better off.
Maybe. But I don't remember the growth of the audience. I think Emil and I did a Comic-Con here once and met some of the guys from D&D's for Nerds. We did like a joint panel with them, and probably it was organized by Matt from Split the Party, and we met one of our patrons there. So we had a few people supporting us on Patreon, which I think meant a lot, probably equally as much, if not more, than the download listens. And it just kind of kept going from there, really.
And how long into it did you have the idea to do the live show, the first one?
I think we did our first one in 2018, so it wasn't long. We'd been recording from April 2017 and started releasing in September 2017, and then we did our first live show like 6 months after that. And then I think, when we had a room full of 40 people and most of them were listeners, it was like, oh, this is cool, this is growing. To be honest, I didn't really track when it spiked a lot, but we
it's been a fairly steady growth, I think. Like
yeah,
there was no one moment of like, bam, this episode seems to have gone viral for some reason.
I mean, like viral for us is like 1,000 people listen to it.
Also,
so it's
viral
like,
for podcasts doesn't really exist in the same way
Yeah.
that like, viral videos on YouTube do and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
exactly. So it's like, you know, I think we did like an ad on what was the podcast that we did during
D&D's for Nerds?
Yeah, D&D's for Nerds, and that was like a pretty big spike for us, and none of those motherfuckers stuck around. So
you don't know that, Jack. They might have.
No, that's true.
That's the other thing
isn't it?
We're also too lazy to really delve deep into our stats
the
and the download stats. Yeah. And the live shows
that
are
way
definitely
lies madness, I reckon. I'm a big proponent, and like thankfully I've got a deputy Fancy Unicorn who helps me out with a whole bunch of the admin stuff and the editing and all sorts of stuff. She runs that stuff because she's all about graphs and she loves numbers, and she looks at the analytics because I refuse to. Like she's like, oh, this video is doing well on YouTube. I'm like, is it good? I didn't look.
Great.
Because if I start chasing the algorithm and being like, oh, maybe this video did better because we released it at this time, or maybe it did better because of this, or maybe it was the length of the video, or maybe it was the thumbnail we used.
Yeah.
I think it'll just drive me mad. I'll be like, no, I don't know. I'll just keep doing what I like to do, and hopefully other people like it enough that it keeps paying the bills.
Exactly. Yeah.
We were the same. We had that because we switch our DMs every like kind of 7 or 8 eps in the homebrew seasons.
Right.
Those numbers of eps stretch out differently as we go on, and once Greg gets into the seat, he just takes it for a while. No, but when you look at
nobody's taking.
It's mine. When you look at those numbers, like it's easy to go, but there was a dip there after I stopped DMing, or when I started DMing, it dipped, and you start going, oh, is that because of me? And we just decided, you know what, we'd make this thing if nobody listened anyway. I know it's because of me, Greg. That's why.
No, yeah. Well, and we don't like we started, you know, making it for us. We enjoy doing it. Like the creative project is really fulfilling, and we're really focused on just telling a good story. So we've never really you know, gotten too focused on it. But we do, like every year at Comedy Festival, we get a big uplift in listeners. Yeah. We're more present. There's a lot more advertising. And that really drives generally an increase.
What sort of a breakdown is it between you of like responsibilities and jobs to do with the podcast? Because Ben, you said you do editing, and Jack, you've done some of the artwork. Was it that you did
all of the artwork?
Yeah, all the artwork. Yeah. And you said Emil does the sound. Does the
Emil does
the music?
Sound.
He did the music for the first 2 homebrew seasons, and then kind of curated other music through some of our other seasons. But since we've sort of been online and keep doing online, he's sort of taken a step to the side and is more about the in-person and live show stuff. So I've taken over that. So all of our Feywild stuff, I kind of curate the royalty-free music we have access to, and I do all the editing, sound effects. So that's kind of the lion's share time-consuming bit. But then Greg will do all.
Do you have particular like agreements, contracts between you guys, or is it all just handshake stuff of like, hopefully money never comes between us? Like, what's?
We drew up
if money comes up, we'll ask her about it, but it's not.
No, we did set up a partnership agreement. Yeah, I lawyered everyone at the start. We set up a partnership agreement, and you know, registered the business, and so it's a cooperative. It's an equal share partnership with equal rights, and you know, we understand that each of us has different things going on at different times and different abilities. So apart from the editing, we share a lot of the duties around
advertising, social media.
Yeah, we'll share those jobs. I mean, I tend to do a lot of the administrative work, and you know, Jack has done bespoke art for almost every episode we've produced.
Most
sometimes
of which
2
rotating around on screen.
Yeah.
Well, listening to this is the podcast version, by the way, and you want to see some of this art, go and check it out. That's on the YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. Or just just check out our website as well.
Yeah, check out our website. Lots of amazing art on there too.
Yeah,
dicepaperroll.com. That's roll with an E.
We've got to buy that dice paper roll with 2 L's.
And just have
domain.
just have it
reroute it.
Yeah.
So we divide and conquer as much as possible and try to give each other relief. But life very much gets in the way sometimes.
Life gets in the way.
Yeah, but we it's always fine, right? Like it's not. We don't want this to be a pressure environment, and we don't want there to be too hard like deadlines set in place. And I think I hope our audience has always understood that when we've had to take a short break or dropped an episode a little late. So yeah, we take a relaxed approach to the whole thing wherever we can. And that's, like organizing Comedy Fest, for example, has always been a big stressor. There's a lot to organize, a lot of things to line up, and a lot of little jobs. And we were always pushing ourselves for more and more. And the larger theater spaces we were in, the more sales pressure we had, the more pressure we put on ourselves, the more we were checking those ticket sales. And it really, it really ruined the experience in a lot of ways, because Comedy Festival is just an absolute blast for us. And so last year we started No Stress Comedy Fest, where we reduced the theatre size and reduced the administrative burden on ourselves. And it was just a fantastic success for us.
Good. We sold out the whole season before we even hit the stage, which was great. So, we just rinse and repeat this year, and I think, but maybe there's a slightly bigger room at the place.
Yeah, we doubled the size of the room's doubled in size. Yeah. So
is that the only times that you guys do live shows? Is it the Comedy Fest stuff? So do you do live shows throughout the year?
We tried a little while back. We started doing regular spots at Comedy Republic here in Melbourne, and we paid to do those spots on a monthly basis. But then it became the kind of pressures Greg was just talking about. On a monthly basis, and it sort of impacted the rest of the podcast because we weren't recording as much, and it just was quite stressful. And whilst they did pretty well, Wizards of the Coast gave us early access to Spelljammer, and we hit the stage with some Spelljammer stuff early on, and it was fun, but it just became a lot. And it was like, well, you want to kind of mix, you want to find the balance between the blast that is doing a live show, but not too much administrative pressure. So, there has been other live shows, and we talk about trying to get stuff in packs sometimes or around that time, but generally we're all so busy that we kind of just focus at the moment on the Comedy Fest, which is a really good balm to scratching that itch.
And with me working in games, like PAX is kind of, not that it couldn't go on without me, but like it, PAX is a kind of a crazy time of year for me because it's also Games Week, which is here in Melbourne, which is like, I'm up, schmoozing every night till all hours, and it's just by the time the actual PAX weekend comes around, I'm an absolute zombie.
I bet. I definitely know how that feels. I've done a lot of the sort of convention circuit stuff and traveling to go to them, and it's can be exhausting. Is the desire to travel overseas to other conventions ever been there? Or have you got audience overseas? Is your podcast listeners
predominantly
a global thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've got audiences focused. I mean, there's a lot in Melbourne, particularly driven by the live shows, I think. But we've got strong showings in the US and the UK as well. We've always talked about Edinburgh. We've always, it's always been a bit of a light on the hill, I think. And I'm still hopeful we'll get there. Because like that one year we did Adelaide Fringe as well. That was the 3 in the audience, but. We traveled together. We stayed in an Airbnb together. We were we were doing the shows at night and recording our homebrew campaign in the house during the day. And honestly, that was one of the best. Just one of the best trips. One of the best sort of little moments of life.
Gen Con or PAX East or PAX Unplugged, any of those ever tickled you?
I mean, if you want to take us, Rob, we'll not say no.
I'll put in my suitcase if I go next.
Yeah, look, thanks. That would be appreciated. We'll take anything.
Yeah. We've talked about doing like a mini tour in the US as well. There's some locations that we have a high concentration of audience that would be suitable, but again, we struggle to organize to jump online for 4 hours on a Sunday. Never mind going overseas, and because most of the guys work in sort of contract environments, it can be really, really difficult to align or to as contractors, they don't deserve annual leave or the rights of normal workers.
Exactly. No,
Agreed.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Certainly on the cards. But the levels of organisation would be out of this world.
Astronomical.
Not to say it won't happen, but it will happen. We'll go to Edinburgh one day and look at the other stuff. But at the moment, it's sort of live shows in Melbourne and churning out the Feywild.
It would be very costly. Like I don't know that we could afford it at the moment, to be honest. Like it's very...
Yeah, I was going to ask what sort of... I don't want you to go into details, of course. Not asking to audit your bank accounts, but in terms of how much the money the podcast brings in for you, is it enough to support the podcast itself? Is it like the Patreon and the ad revenue and the whatever else comes in? Are any of you actually drawing a wage from doing the podcast, or?
No, we're not drawing a wage. It supports itself, and it puts into a kitty. So we've got a pretty healthy backstop for like equipment and that sort of thing.
People not used to the Australian accent, that word was kitty with a T, not kiddie with a D.
Yeah, we've got a kitty.
Or titty.
I don't know.
It is we've got a kitty that just runs around the place.
Yeah.
We just pay for ice cream.
Yeah. My son just carries all our money.
He's the financier. He's got a big bag of money with a big dollar sign on it. And anytime you need to buy new headphones or something, you're like, we've got to talk to Greg's kid. We've got to talk to him.
Please, Daddy, can I put it down? It's so heavy. No!
We've got to talk to the kitty. Can we have some money? Let me move some things around.
That's right.
I've got a kitty. So we're in a strong position. We do, as the podcast, but we're sort of just below, I think, the precipice of being able to draw that wage. We talk about this. Often we're in a focused sort of growth period at the moment. We're finishing off the third act of the third book of our homebrew, which we're finally going to be able to release, and we're intending on just using up the bank and really pushing that one. And we've always talked about like the ability to draw the wage would be great. Ben puts in more consistent, solid work at the computer than any of us in the editing and production. And we would really like to be able to compensate Ben for his time. He's so fucking expensive,
Every time we talk about it, he just gives us a quote that's way too high.
Cost of living,
Well, like mates rates, and he's like,
I'm doing it for mates rates, you fuckers. It's free.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's a good point.
Look, I think that's the goal, and you'd love to do it. But I think while it supports the pod and all the subscriptions and all that kind of stuff, and our entry fees into the Comedy Fest is great. And then when we do Comedy Fest and you have your sellout season, well then you're buffed up again. And we have in the past gone, hey, that was a really successful season, and we've divvied out a bit of
dividend.
cash to each of us. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something we're still learning as well, is the growth period and how can you push Patreon, and do you need to move to video stuff on YouTube as well, which we've started putting up as well, just so people can watch it. It's not live, but they can't interact with it.
That was the next question I was going to ask. Like, what other platforms have you considered before? Do you advertise your stuff on Instagram, like shorts and things, the Insta Reels and all that stuff?
In a sense, but then even putting a lot of those reels together, like in the past, has often been something I would do, and there's not a lot of time for that now. And then it's like, so where do we get that reel from, and who puts it together? And but we're sort of Instagram. We've let Facebook go a little bit. X can
Side in the ass.
That's a bit, but we still use it.
Instagram has been and Facebook have been the main driver of our advertisement previously, and has generated audience, new audience for us.
Yeah. Do you get ad revenue and sponsorship revenue too?
I just had a look at our YouTube, and I was wrong. I miscalculated. It's not 100,000.
It's not 100,000.
No, it's 73. So
73 rounds. If you round to the nearest 100,000,
which is
100,000.
Yeah, it's like 700,000.
Yeah, it's 73,000.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So if you're on YouTube and you're listening and you're watching this, as you likely are, head over and check out Roll2Cast.
Please.
Go check out Roll2Cast as well. They are good.
They're really good. Yeah.
Also check out Dice Paper Roll.
And please subscribe, please.
So no ad revenue currently.
Even on the podcast, you check ads in the pod now?
No, we haven't put ads in the pod.
Early on, we were
for a reason, or just
early on we were we were kind of like, we want to make it ours, and we don't want to just interrupt with putting ads in the middle of it. And
Casper mattress,
so it was
Squarespace.
Yeah.
HelloFresh.
Pretty much. But then over time, I think we've loosened up on that, but now we've just not done anything about making it happen. So earlier it was out of principle, and now it's out of laziness.
Now I write a Patreon ad for every episode and record it, especially for that. We say that we'll remove it for Patreon subscribers or whatever, but most of the Patreon subscribers now just listen to the regular episode because they want to hear the ad.
That's good.
So I don't know.
I'm not. What sort of Patreon perks did you go with?
Oh, we've got
incentives?
Discord. We've got the removed ads. We give away free tickets to our shows. Nice. There's a stream that we upload to Patreon where like an art chat where Jack draws the art for the episodes, and we talk about the episode and just random stuff.
That one's really fun. That one's been really like an enjoyable sort of low. I wouldn't say it's low effort, but it's sort of less planning required than recording an episode of D&D. And we've got stuff to work with, and thankfully I can draw relatively quickly these days, and like we make most of the art in an hour to an hour and 20, and that's been really good for me, because like for the first season I was doing 2 pieces of individual artwork for every episode, because I guess why not? I don't know, like
a week.
A week, and it was like I was spending like 8 to 16 hours just painting every week outside of regular hour work, and I don't know, like I got really good at drawing hands during that period of time, but yeah, like it's this format has been really good just for having something we're presenting to our audience. We've always had quite a high quality bar that we try to hit, and like that has been really useful for helping to constrain that a little bit. I think,
it's essentially us body doubling you while you do the art in a lot of ways.
That's right.
But like both to be there and to stay on task, but also to make sure that you're not going too long, that we are like restricting that time frame, because you know, Jack does a piece of art and we're 40 minutes into the stream and I'm like, this is perfect. What more could you possibly do?
Don't change a thing.
Yeah, and then he does this thing and I'm like, oh my God, that's so much better. Like,
you're right. That was the thing that needed to be
done. But I think that Jack could probably do that ad infinitum with any piece.
Yeah. Sometimes he goes, I'm just going to go when we finish. It's done. Oh, and we sign off. Maybe I'll just work on it for another 5 minutes, and then you see it the next day, and it's just embellished beautifully. For probably, like, he sat there for at least another hour.
They say you never finish a piece of art, you abandon it, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think that's Da Vinci, right? Da Vinci is quoted as saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's like, who the hell knows? It's they were always
true.
Whoever's quoted, it was Mark Twain or Albert Einstein or maybe Leonardo DiCaprio.
Probably
anonymous.
Anonymous.
Yeah,
I believe that was Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Could never believe who quotes are attributed to on the internet. Albert Einstein.
With Grok.
So let's talk sort of future of Dice Paper Roll. What's the immediate future that you guys see for yourselves, and what's more of the long distance blue sky project of where you'd love to be eventually?
Well, we'd like to be on Blue Sky if we can. We don't have an account yet, but we're working on it.
I don't think they require invites anymore. I don't think it's
Oh, what?
At this
Okay.
Point.
Yeah, okay. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about sending us your invites. We'll just set that up, I guess. Yeah.
Right now we're working through Feywild, and that's we're really happy with how that project's sort of turning out. As always, we thought it would take about 20 episodes to complete, and it'll actually take about 40 or 50, or even more. But we're enjoying that journey, and particularly like it's turned out to be almost totally non-violent campaign, and that's been a really fascinating. Mostly, but like it's been a really fascinating journey until we did make a bunch of people shit themselves to death, and then was so interesting dealing with the horror of that,
the trauma,
the trauma
of what we've just.
Yeah, I really like to have when these guys go into combat. I really like there to be a sense of weight to that, because I want to discourage it as much as possible, and. You
don't want to have to do rules. And,
exactly.
How combat works.
But we've also started. I mentioned before, we started recording book 3 of our homebrew. That's like really exciting to get back into that after a few years, and so we're just sort of finishing off that homebrew campaign and rolling that turd in glitter, ready to give out to the general public. So that will release later on this year, and so those are sort of our, and comedy festival in April. Those are our sort of near term goals for 2025.
I've always wanted to, though, as well, though, obviously get to a point where we can draw a wage and we can afford to take the foot off the adult boring regular jobs and be like, right, we can make stuff a few nights a week. And we've also spoken about moving into like Twitch streaming, just so that you can interact with the audience, and it's less post-production intensive, we assume, than what we're currently doing, just so it lightens the load and we can have a video format that is interacting with people. But that's sort of, do you switch that up halfway through Feywild, or do we wait till the next one to start? So that's kind of always been on the cards a bit down the track. And then I guess blue sky dreaming would be full-time jobs, just enough, like tens of thousands of dollars coming in every month from your patrons to pay for it all, basically.
And would you, in that ideal world, would you be mainly focusing on the podcast, mainly on the live shows, still an even mixture of both?
I think we'd look at moving into all of it, like up the ante on all of it. So you are doing a monthly live show, and you're still recording your Twitch streams weekly, and that you are producing way more content. That would be the dream, and getting paid for it. So that
I'd love to be touring the show.
Yeah,
the live show. And making the podcast. I'd love to just be living the Adelaide life. The Adelaide Fringe life.
with like
you just
want
to take the Adelaide Fringe. You just want to have a sellout audience in Adelaide, and then you're like, I've done
Adelaide life.
Finished.
More audience, dream done. Over. We can die happy.
Yeah. Do you have any goals or plans or hopes to sort of branch it out to other dice pit, like more franchisey almost, like get other people involved in making other content that not all 6 of you are always involved in, like have other, because you've got guest stars for comedians and things, right? But have you ever considered bringing in other cast and like diversifying the cast or expanding?
I appreciate the call out, as
I mean, we've got to address the white male elephant in the room.
Yeah, exactly. It's worth saying.
As somebody who runs Viva La Dirt League, who is another just 5 white males at the table. That was all friends who started a thing together 12 years ago.
Yes.
Well, we have a joke that having Lauren, our one white, only in Dungeons and Dragons is having one white female in your group, diversity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not really. We'd like to diversify, and we've met so many cool people at PAX, and we do talk about it a lot. It is something we've thought about, but we haven't quite implemented it yet. I think Jack's current campaign would be a great place to start bringing guests in, because it is a really whimsical kind of world that we're in. So there's certainly scope. It's just the planning and executing that hasn't quite happened yet.
How do you choose your future projects? Like, how did you choose which, like, for instance, is the next thing you want to do?
Well, we were really wanting to capitalize on the freshness of the new book.
Right.
So and we released it only like 6 months later. So it was like
really jumped on board that train.
Yeah, really. Really try to like keep up with current.
that bandwagon was thankfully 6 miles long. Managed to really just get on that.
Yeah, the zeitgeist is what we're all about.
Jack this is great, because Jack actually thinks we were trying to ride that wave, but what we were actually doing is trying to get Jack to DM, and the only thing that we thought would get him in is this whimsical campaign with low combat options. And so we were like, oh yeah, Feywild's releasing. We gotta ride the wave, but actually it was all just to get Jack in the DM chair for a while.
But then in typical DPR style, we did that character creation app, but then it was a year until we played our first episode.
That's right.
It's been stretched out a lot. So we kind of missed that bandwagon wave.
Yeah. Have all of you done a stint of DMing now? Or?
Yeah.
Emil's,
pretty much.
Emil's only done live shows,
and Lauren's only done live shows and like holiday one shots. Like the first, like our homebrew campaign, the first 2 seasons of that, it's like myself, Greg, and Ben take turns at DMing the same overall storyline. So we kind of broke it down into like little sections of like 7 to 13 episodes per DM. Some stuck to the 7, and then others were like, I just need to get more. It's just my story is too big.
I accidentally killed a character. Now I gotta fix it. It takes time.
And then so I think for the most part, like Greg, Ben, and myself have done most of the DMing. And Jack doing now Feywild in the long form DMing, but then everyone has a turn when it comes to live shows, and particularly Comedy Fest.
Right. One thing I wanted to pay props to, and I've always been super impressed with, though, is so Greg and I played forever and DM'd forever, but so Dan DM'd his first ever game in those first ever eps you hear in book 1 that he had not DM'd before ever, and he's doing it in podcast format. And then Emil and Jack both DM'd for the first time live in front of audiences, which blows my mind because I would have been way too terrified to ever do any of that when I was sort of starting. And yeah, Lauren started in the podcast, but then pretty quickly moved to live stuff as well. So we've all had a go, but I think the guys who have done it learnt as part of the podcast have a really lovely, just a really freewheeling ability to say yes to anything and roll with the punches, which is really cool to watch. And I sometimes am a little bit jealous of.
And which of you is the best DM? I'm not going to accept any cop-out answers. I want a definitive answer from each of you. Which is the best DM?
Look, fuck. I mean,
Dan.
It's Emil.
Fine.
Dan.
Emil's the best.
It's Dan.
Yeah.
No, it's Dan.
I'd say Greg.
I say Greg.
Dan.
Yeah.
Dan live, Greg at the table, Jack for Whimsical Worlds.
Nah, me all the way.
I think the good thing is like when each of us, we of course each have slightly different styles, right? And different strengths and different weaknesses in the DM chair. But one of the great things about swapping the DM is we're constantly challenging each other, and we're that's really helped our DMing style grow. I was like, we were talking about favorite episodes. I was going to mention one in Curse of Strahd about episode 15. I'd always been afraid of character death and affecting the story, and that a character dies like in about episode 3 of Curse of Strahd, and I was
sets the tone for a horror game, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, right, and I was like, that felt great, and
I want more.
Dad had spent so much time building
more.
this character. Yeah,
Taste the
exactly.
blood now.
But there's this episode 15 where the horror just reaches like absolute peak. And this character, it's got a real Saw vibe, and one of the characters ends up eating another one, and nice. It's really horrific, but also like an absolutely hilarious episode. But it was one of those moments where we were pushing ourselves and really expanding, what we thought we could do with the story, and being more comfortable to sort of start to step away from the rules a little bit. So what I would say is that I, as a DM, have grown exponentially because of.
So you're putting your own hat in the ring for best DM contender? Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't think I had to say from like, but like
God complex anyone.
Shut up, Ben. Every time we DM or we do a live show or someone else takes the reins, there's something, we all try to introduce something new, and we all push each other and grow from that. And there's been so many of Dan's games that have been so inspirational to me in trying something new. Just Dan though, not anyone else.
No, yeah.
So your answer's Dan after you.
Yeah.
No, Dan is.
I think we can all agree no one's saying Ben.
Yeah, I heard that loud and clear, Dan.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that there is a correct answer, and none of you said it. It's actually me.
Sorry, Robert.
I am the best Dungeon Master. I literally have an award that says best Dungeon Master. So
you should come and DM for us one time and see.
You should.
I can get across to Melbourne easy enough from Auckland. I got friends in Melbourne. I can make it work.
Get that diary out.
Come on down.
Let's schedule it in. It's easy enough to as easy as scheduling 6 people is. Scheduling a guest DM to come across from another country for it is even easier. It's just
Rob,
keep adding
we will
more people
make it
and
work.
Scheduling gets...
Don't worry.
Yeah, I won best DM at the Crit Awards last year, and the award is just best DM. And then every time that I said it from then on, the award title changed slightly. I was best DM ever, and then I was best DM in the world, and then I was best DM of all time, and then I was best DM in the universe of all time ever from here on to ever after. It just kept changing and changing. I don't like to bring it up. I'm not. I'm a very humble guy.
Clearly
you are.
I'm the most humble guy there is.
Why isn't it in the background? Why, like an
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no physical award for it. I was like, I want my Oscar moment. Give me something to hold.
Yeah, it's one.
Get one made. Get one made.
Yeah. The award of invisibility.
I should get it made, and it should just be me as an Oscar.
Get a medal with your own face on it. Yeah, just
it's going to be an Oscar of me, and the little Oscar of me is wearing a medal with my face on it. It's just multi-layered.
It's the inaugural Robert Hartley Best DM Award.
Yeah. I will make that for you. That sounds very funny.
Thank you. You can hand it to me. You can hand it to me as a ceremony when I come out there to DM for you guys.
Yeah.
Awarded by Rob to Rob.
Well, funny you should say that, because we were for the Crit Awards, because it was all online, we were asked to do like a minute acceptance speech in case we won. And I did record myself in front of a green screen sitting there in a suit and like one chair, and then I put a wig on and sat next to myself in like in something slightly more feminine, and I was like, oh, and I leant in and give myself a kiss, and I recorded myself 3 more times and put myself in the background of it, and so I was like clapping for myself as I got up, and then I walked off camera and I walked back onto camera as I presented myself with this award, and I was using like a Storm Giant mini, and I was like, thank you, very, very well done, and I was like, oh, thank you so much, and then I gave myself an acceptance speech where I thanked myself, and I'm a very modest guy, as you can tell.
We did the same thing when we won the award for smallest audience ever performed to in Adelaide, and we edited ourselves into the audience for the promo.
Actually, that's a very funny picture.
That's fantastic. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
We'll put it up on, if you could find that picture and give me it, that'd be great. I'll put it up on the YouTube.
Yeah, we'll
so we're running out of time because I don't want to keep you guys all day. But if anybody in the chat has got questions for us, burning questions, or anything you've asked that I might have missed as well, redeem it with an Ask the Question redemption there. It only costs you 50 channel points, which you have by now if you've been watching. And then I'll get to those in just a moment. Before we get to audience questions, though, I just want to ask, like, what's next? Have you guys decided on which campaign is after Witchlight? Like, have you decided that you're going straight back to the homebrew stuff for a while after that? Are you?
We'll do the homebrew, so we'll finish off our original story arc that the 3 of us were co-DMing, but this time round I'm gonna be the only one DMing it, so I'm hoping to keep it. So
you get to land the plane.
About 20.
Yeah.
What's that?
You get to land the plane, like this home. You've said you're finishing it off, right? So and you're the only one who gets to decide how it ends.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, hoping that it will be done in like 20 episodes, but not likely. Knowing us. Yeah, so I mean, looking forward to just to getting stuck back into doing that and recording in person, and then after we finish book 3, I mean, then it's, I guess we're open to anything, maybe Greyhawk.
I think what we have spoken about though is move to Twitch and then probably have a format where it doesn't matter if we can't all be there, and something that really is about having guests in with us, either whether it's just for that one recording episode or the session, so that they're across a few episodes. That's sort of where we're looking at the moment, but that could change by the time we get to it.
I think also like probably not trying to jump on the zeitgeist of another D&D.
No, I've heard that Lost Mines of Fandelva's pretty hot right now, so you should probably.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, like in 2 years.
You mean the first one though, right? Not the bit that they kind of re-released slightly with the extra.
Did they actually re-release it?
Yeah, they put something extra.
So
well, that ruined my joke.
Just like we did Curse of Strahd as they released like the box set version. We knew that was coming out.
You knew it was coming out, and you were jumping on the
Curse of Strahd. Yeah, we knew ahead of time.
I mean, I'm pretty keen for us to do a Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough. As a bit of an introduction to potentially doing some Twitch streamy type stuff, to just do a Baldur's Gate 3. I just love that game, and I want to play it with my friends and do all the voices. Yay!
You absolutely can. I did a stream with one of my partners recently for like a Christmas sort of hangout stream, where she'd never played it. I'd played a little bit of it. Baldur's Gate for me is a difficult one because like I love the idea of it, but it's the concept of uncanny valley when something is close enough to a thing that it's like not actually as good to watch. Baldur's Gate 3 is uncanny valley for me because it pretends to be Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and for the most part it is. But there's enough changed about it that I'm like, that's not how that spell works. And I'm like the antithesis of all of you. I have read the Player's Handbook cover to cover like it's a novel, and I remember it all. I've just got a crazy brain for remembering facts and figures and numbers and stuff. And so I know the rules of Dungeons & Dragons like nobody else. Again, I'm very modest. And so like really? I just know how things work. And so like they cast a spell in Baldur's Gate 3. I'm like, that's not how that spell works. Why did my spiritual weapon take damage? They're immune to damage. They're not a physical object that can take damage. Why is it asking me to use a bonus action for this? It's just a thing I can do on my turn. Why can't I dodge? Where's my ready action? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Why does it work this way?
If you were a bit more like us, you wouldn't know that was a thing,
exactly.
And you'd enjoy the game a lot.
And I'd enjoy myself more. That's why they say ignorance is bliss. And so
that's right,
I've played Baldur's Gate 3. I've enjoyed some of it. When I started to play through it, I sort of had to tell myself, I'm playing in a D&D game where the DM has told me, hey, I do a lot of house ruling, and I rule it this way, and I rule it this way, and I'm like, cool, I'm fine with that, because I'm fine with people changing the rules as long as I know it going in, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you spell autism? So as long as I know what it's changed before it's changed, I'm fine with the rules changing. So so we did this stream where I was introducing my partner to Baldur's Gate 3, and I decided I was just gonna like DM it essentially. So I was doing all the controls so that she didn't have to also work out how to move the camera and stuff. And so she wakes up in the pod with everything broken in front of her, and I'm like, so you wake up and you see a nursery that seems to have been containing those tadpoles. What do you do? And she goes, I want to walk over to it. So I walk her character over to it on the screen, and I'm like, do you want to touch it? And the options come up, the dialogue options come up. Reach out, touch it, do this, blah blah blah. And she goes, oh, I guess I have to touch it. I was like, why? And it's like, she goes, because there's a dialogue option. And I was like, this is Dungeons and Dragons. You don't have to do anything. What would your character do? And she goes, oh, I wouldn't touch it. I was like, oh, cool. So you walk away. And I was sort of narrating what's happening on screen, like as it was D&D. And a lot of people were like, man, that was fun. I'd love to see you actually DM the whole thing as if you're actually DMing it as a campaign. But she's playing.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, who the hell has the time for an extra project?
Right.
Stuff that I'm doing. But yes, if you guys start doing Twitch stuff, you're going to need like things to do that are the branching out into other content. I can see it going really well that you bring your audience in that want to see you guys play through it. Mate, you could even tie it into your live play things or your Wild Beyond the Witchlight campaign, and just like take characters you guys have played, like the fan favorite characters, and make those in Baldur's Gate and play through as them, sort of thing.
I'm looking forward to the when you can play as a frog person update. So
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, our next thing is obviously you're gonna DM our next one, Rob.
Yeah, that's the next project.
So, yeah,
I'm very expensive.
Best DM in the world.
Shit.
Best DM in the world. As soon as I won that award, my prices doubled.
Yeah.
Oh, doubled! Wow. Okay. Okay. Nice.
So let's start
in this economy.
In this economy, yeah exactly.
I'm gonna have to get the ACCC onto you. That's like price gouging.
He's not in Australia. He's in New Zealand.
Yeah, mate. I can get anything.
I'll still call them the Australian consumer.
As soon as I land in Melbourne, they'll get my ass.
Yeah.
Or the ACCC police will be on you.
Yeah, because they're so rigorous about.
They're very violent.
Yeah,
they'll have graphs for me. They'll be like, look at it, the rate of inflation, and then your prices have gone. Here's the thing: if you're a freelance Dungeons and Dragons creator for a living, you can charge everything's value is only what somebody's willing to pay for it. So back in the day, like 4 or 5 years ago, people were emailing me being like, do you do games for hire? And I was like, yeah, I'm a DM for hire, and I'll $100, and they'd be like, fuck yeah, and I'd be like, should have charged more than that. And then somebody responded, and they're like, "Are you do GM for hire?" And you're like, "Yeah, $1,000." And they're like, "Nope." And you're like, "Okay, less than that." And you eventually work out what your worth is, what somebody's willing to pay for it.
That's like I think it was in Ireland. Bankers went on strike once, and the economy was fine. Nothing happened, and nothing changed. No, like the bankers kind of.
No, it's fine, Jack. Devalue my work. No, that's fine.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's okay. That's fine. Yeah.
I don't work for a bank.
No,
I'm not that much of an asshole.
At the moment.
Hello to all our banker listeners out there.
Fuck 'em.
Thanks to all my finance industry listeners. Shout out.
Greg was gonna be like spreading this among his colleagues to be like, listen to this. And now
I still would.
Listen to what people think of us.
Yeah, listen.
20 to 30% of our audience is Greg's colleagues, so that's not true.
All right, let's move to the questions so I don't keep you guys forever. Fancy Unicorn asks, how do you get your live play guests up to speed? Do you play a game with them before or anything?
No.
Throw them in the deep end and just go with it. Do you ask them if they've ever played any sort of TTRPGs before? They understand the concept of what they're about to do?
Yeah, we try to... Oh, you go, Jack.
Yeah, but we kind of... because we treat our audience as if they've not played D&D before as well, so we kind of have a bit of a tutorial at the beginning of every episode that's live anyway, which is... serves two purposes. One, to set the rules and the tone for the audience, and then also have our guests...
remind all of you how to play.
Yeah, and I need a refresher every now and then.
Yeah,
Jack never does that update at the start.
No.
Tutorial. So here's how D&D works.
Yeah.
Anybody in the audience want to have a crack at it? Let's see.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We also used to send prep material to guests. So it's generally comedians and improvisers that we have on in our live shows, and so we'd send them this prep material and we'd be like, "Oh, what character do you want to make?" And like 90% of them just don't read it. And
we quickly learned that comedians do not read all that crap.
So
tell me fucking about it.
Yeah. But then we've got the ones
I run
that
Viva La Dirt League D&D. All the four players are for comedians, and then any guest stars we have on are usually comedians. I understand
exactly. And we've usually got we've had guests who have also been pretty mad D&D players, like Scout Boxall, and they were I DM'd. Did I DM their game? Anyway, I spoke to them before they came on, and they we spoke for 10, 20 minutes, and they had all these questions, and then they sent me the backstory and they sent me the character sheet. I was like, this is fucking great. And then Scod from Tripod, for example, showed up one time and had a character sheet, and we don't use those. He was a little bit disappointed.
He used his. He was the only one applying modifiers in the whole game.
It's pretty funny.
Crushing,
But we try not to overload them too much because it just can become daunting. It's think of a character. We tell them if they're like, hey, I'm thinking this for your character. Would you be comfortable? Like, I kind of want you to have this reveal towards the first act. Like we sometimes, or I have anyway, we'll tell the person, this is what I need you to do. After about half an hour, just drop this bit of information. Are you comfortable with that? And then others, we just let them go as they turn up, and they're just either made for it or sometimes not so much. But we make sure we include them and make sure they're having a good time, and we all tell the story together.
Yeah, I think as well, we've developed how we actually kind of prep the guests as we've done it more and more, and so I think at first it was kind of a bit more, here's all the information, and that's not really going to work. Whereas now it's more like, well, I try and think of who is this person going to be? Within the narrative framework. So they can still come up with their character and all that sort of stuff. But for instance, one of the episodes I did was the team were going to do a heist and steal from the British Museum, and the guest character was a super talented spy. And so then they had all those like kind of tropes and all that, the information, all the key kind of bits that they could take and then run with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's kind of better to give guests a bit of parameters rather than being like, hey, you can do whatever you want and then get decision paralysis. So it's sort of like, okay, yeah, you're a super talented spy. These guys need to steal shit. Figure it out.
I was talking to a friend about this just last night who was running her first game today, and she was asking me for sort of advice and things, and she was like, oh, how much do new players want sort of free will versus like being a bit more railroady? And I was like, first thing I can say on that topic is don't be afraid of railroading like it's a bad word, like a lot of people are, because I think there's a huge difference in linear storytelling and railroading. And people think linear storytelling is railroading and are freaking out about it and being like, if I do anything that pushes them in any sort of a direction or gives them a call to action, then I'm railroading them, and that's a bad thing, apparently, according to the horror stories subreddits and stuff. It's like, it's not railroading and it's not a bad thing to say, you guys go to the wizard and the wizard gives you your plot for what you have to do. Here's the thing that you have to do. Here's the, like, they say creativity breeds from constraints, right? Like you give somebody a blank piece of paper and go make a thing, then it can be like, oh shit, what do I draw? But you give them a piece of paper that's already got some squiggles on it and go turn this into something, and they're like, okay, I can do this. And it's the same with creative storytelling as well. Here's your character, here's the story that we're going to be in, here's the world, here's the setting. I want you to be going in this general direction especially because you're telling a story, not really playing a game. And so it's okay to sort of tell them, like, these are the kind of beats that we're going to be hitting. And then they know, as performers and comedians, they're like, cool, I can stick to those beats and play within it.
Absolutely. Like, I've started trying, even with just the regular crew, not only like the guest as well, but like when I'm DMing, I'll sort of be like, all right, so it's going to be a post-apocalyptic kind of vibe. This thing's going to happen, and then you're going to meet this person, then we'll probably do a combat at the end. I haven't really written a lot for this section, so it'd be really great if you guys could improvise during that bit, just so, and because especially when it's a live show, because it's like, if I feel like I've got some holes in my DM storyline or whatever, it's like, I want everyone to be aware that if there seems to be a bit of dead space, jump in, but we're all going in there with like a bit of a clear vision of what this story is going to be, and so where we should try and go with it. Rather than just figuring it out at the time.
You don't do a collaborative storytelling writer's room by turning up and being like, what are we doing? I don't know. Do we want to write a rom-com or a horror or a fucking... You turn up with an idea and a script and a whatever, and then you're like, let's work around it within these rooms.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it, actually,
I like to describe it as like, my games are sandbox, but if you zoom out, you realize the sandbox is on a train. The train is going. The train is going where I need it to go, and you guys can play around as you go. And then maybe even you'll stop at a station and you'll get off and play on an even bigger sandbox in the platform. But eventually, I'm going to blow the whistle and get you guys back on the train.
Then you'll see that sandbox, that train is in another sandbox. It's on a bigger train.
There's a train that some kid is playing in a sandbox.
That's how the world works, though, right? Like,
I guess I'm the kid playing in the sandbox of the world, and I'm playing with the train for
It's like the end of Men in Black.
And then fate is, I think I'm making choices, but actually I'm destined because of cause and effect of physics. And so actually that's the train of ultimate train that started at the Big Bang. We got there, everybody. We did it.
That was a good train of thought.
Hey.
Nice, Jack.
We got a question. What is everybody's favourite class and why?
Working.
Mine's middle class, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to be upper. But
proletariat.
No, you don't want to be upper class, not with the class warfare that's coming, mate. We're on the cusp. We're on the cusp of actual like French Revolution style things.
You do look delicious, Ben.
Yummy, yummy.
Yum yum.
What's everybody's favorite class in Dungeons and Dragons? 2 players.
I don't think I have a favorite class. I don't think I have a favorite. I role play a lot, particularly in dice paper roll. I tend to be whatever character or class I play, often the guy or the person who will kind of get the group back on track. Like things get silly, but my characters tend to be a little bit like, come on, you guys, we got to, like, did anyone forget that this thing was supposed to happen? And so I tend to play
the memory of the group. That's
that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much
of the group.
The editor, I think, is probably
he's the one who's sitting there going, I'm gonna have to edit this later, and I need some cohesion to this story. So
he's the only one that re-listens to the last episode.
True.
Yeah, I'm like the walking
you have
quest journal.
You have a role that you take rather than a class per se.
I think so, yeah, because like I enjoy the rogue. I don't play a lot of spellcasters, but I loved playing a cleric. Big heavy-hitter barbarian. Like I'm kind of like to play lots of stuff. I've never really played a druid and never really delved a lot into wizards, so haven't done a lot of spellcasting.
You never get a chance.
Not with you around, Greg.
Yeah, because I always play a wizard.
Wizards are great. I love
or
wizards.
Just spellcaster in general.
Yeah.
We should do an entirely wizards campaign.
That would be pretty fun.
Yeah.
That could be good.
On a beach.
I love an Oopsol campaign. Like I've done a few of them and they work really well.
Really?
Yeah, we did one. So there's a D&D studio here in New Zealand called Dice Legends, and they did an event once where it was like running through the four main classes, like the originals essentially: fighter, mage, cleric, and rogue, and they did an oops all blank through the exact same scenario. So you did like a dungeon crawl with 4 fighters, 4 mages, 4 wizards, 4 clerics, 4 rogues, and it was very fun to be a part of. I was in the 4 wizards, and we were the underdogs. Everybody thought we were going to die because wizards are so squishy, and like there's a stereotype, especially with the early editions, of like, oh, you take 1d4 damage and you die. But with the amount of different subclasses you can choose from these days, there was a tank wizard who was like a war mage who has all sorts of, like, if you cast this spell you get so many temporary hit points yourself, or if you cast this spell your AC goes up or whatever. Then we had like just this huge damage dealer evocation wizard, and then you can branch into more buffing or ally sort of bard like wizards, and we ended up acing it even more than the clerics did, which was everybody's favorite.
Oh, wow.
It was like, clerics are going to ace this because they can heal, they've got fighting abilities, they're this and that and the other.
Yeah.
and we smashed it just because we were all kind of not metagamers, power gamers. We were all optimizers and power gamers and knew what to do with how to play wizards and stuff.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I love
if you like to min-max wizards, you jam. I reckon.
yeah.
Too much reading in my book, but
too much reading in my book. My books prefer to be picture books.
yeah, that's right.
My books prefer to remain closed.
Yeah, that's right.
Mainly the player's handbook.
What are your favorite classes, Dan and Jack?
I like bards. I think they're super fun. I really enjoy playing into the roleplay of it. But more recently, I've been playing sort of fighting characters. My character for our live shows, Pippo Thomas Staromsky, who's a hippopotamus character, is more of a fighter, and I really love the physicality that you can kind of play into it with that, and the sort of. It's mostly just role playing a really, really heavy character, which is
nice.
Which is like there's a good sense of weight behind that character's.
How much does a hippo weigh?
1,000 kilos, something like that. I can't remember. Yeah.
I kind of feel like Jack and I are kind of the opposite. Like, I've always kind of played melee characters. My first one, when we did that 3.5 campaign, was a monk, and I was doing martial arts at the time, so I was like, sick. And then kind of always sort of stuck with doing melee characters because it when describing my action, it's like, okay, I can really visualize and physicalize what this character's action is, whether it's like running and jumping over the table and sliding through the blood and blah blah blah. And so for my imagination, it really worked for me, and I was always kind of a bit scared to go into spellcasters, but I've been playing a bard in our Feywild campaign, and I've given myself like the stipulation of like I'm like a bit of a upper class aristocrat kind of frogman, and so I can only talk my way out of shit. So I'm like, if I'm going to go spellcaster, I don't want to have any kind of physical ability whatsoever. And so then trying to use spells, but then reimagining them in like this kind of parameters that I've given myself. So he's just got the gift of the gab, and he's just going to talk his way out of things and, you know, suggest to people and command and do all those kind of spells, which then it comes to a combat situation, kind of sucks.
I gave myself a similar stipulation. I played a bard once, and I was like, this guy's going to be a full trauma, and I just gave them enchantment spells, and I put the limitation on myself that every time I took a spell, it had to be from the School of Enchantment. And I was like, it's all about manipulating minds and stuff. And as you say, sometimes it can be difficult when you get into a physical combat with somebody who's got quite clearly like a pretty strong mind and pretty strong wisdom save, and you're like, fuck, what have I got?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stab him with my dagger, I guess. So at that point, just like turn to buffing your allies as best you can with inspiration and stuff.
Yeah, but I've just really been enjoying how taking that idea and then reimagining spells so that then I could actually make sense of it, you know. I know that they've got their descriptions and that kind of thing.
But I love a good.
Those words are so small.
Yeah, as long as the mechanic stays the same, I don't care. And even if the mechanics change, sometimes I don't care. Like if you change a fireball into an acid ball, I don't really care, as long as it's not changing too much else. We've got a question from Jay Platypus that asks, you mentioned Critical Role. What other groups and channels do you watch or draw inspiration from?
Adventure Zone, of course.
Adventure Zone, yeah.
What else to...
Just that.
Pretty much.
Dimension 20, guys.
Yeah, Dimension 20.
Yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I was like, if they don't say it soon, we're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of Harmon Quest as well.
Oh yeah, I loved Harmon Quest.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Real short form content that you can.
I also really loved Rude Tales of Magic. I thought that was fantastic.
Oh, I don't know that one.
That's
They're the New York-based group. Is that?
I'm not sure actually. I'm not even sure if I might be getting the name wrong. Hang on.
No,
I'll
that's
double-check.
it. You've talked to me about it before. Yeah, Rude Tales of Magic.
Yeah, I really. Those guys are absolutely fantastic. I thought that actually, like listening to those guys, really put a sense of like how I frame a scene in my head. Like I really found their approach to basically like just talking about camera work and like setting up, like establishing shots and stuff. Like it really affected the way that I was thinking about DMing. And yeah, they're all just like wonderful performers as well. Like I think it's another one where they're all sort of animation or acting workers as well. So yeah.
So speaking of all these other actual plays and stuff, how do you guys? What's your sort of elevator pitch to try and stand out? What's your unique point of sale among other actual play podcasts that exist? Do you just go like, hey, just try us and see if we're your flavor? Or is there
our mascot is a penis.
That is about
but
it.
How do you stand out? How do you stand out from others?
Yeah, no, it's dick focused. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it's just
it's
the focus on comedy and chaos. comedy and chaos, and real like high quality audio and production values, and a really strong focus on the narrative. So we switch between, you know, just outrageous, uproarious laughter and really heart-wrenching, tear-jerking moments.
Yeah, I think the thing that I always really like about our podcast is I think because we're kind of a little bit, you know, irreverent. Like we don't really care too much about the rules, but we love telling the story. But I think there's a real kind of sense of being at the table, and I know that probably every single podcast kind of thing sort of says that about themselves, but like I kind of feel like
that's consistent feedback we get is like
people feeling like they're actually sitting there with their own friends making those jokes and having a laugh.
I think that is important for the success of any actual play TTRPG, is to remember that people, like a lot of folks, will go, oh, it's the best story and it's whatever, and it's like, you're never going to compete with Netflix. Like if story is what you're focused on, there are plenty of things with higher production values that people can watch that have Game of Thrones level, you know, story.
Yeah,
people watch TTRPG actual plays or listen to TTRPG actual plays because it's about friends enjoying telling the story together. It's about about the medium of telling the story through TTRPGs and feeling like friends at a table, not the podcast Friends at the Table.
Yeah, but and like getting back, just going back a little bit as well. Like in terms of the live shows, like we get the audience to do the Foley for our shows now, so they do all the sound effects and that kind of thing. Where it's that kind of like, it's like super serious, cool D&D, but it's like it's silly. We're playing little games and we're just trying to make ourselves and each other laugh, and everyone's a little bit silly in regards to that, including the audience.
We've got a question here from Spirit Goblin. Minis, digital or mind's eye? So do you like to use... I know that for the podcast, obviously, Theatre of the Mind, mind's eye stuff is the most practical. But if it wasn't for podcast use, do you guys have individual preferences to whether you prefer minis and terrain?
Yeah, oh god, I love minis and terrain. Yeah, minis and terrain all the way. To be honest, I desperately miss laying out the grid map and moving the minis around and crunching on Doritos while I'm
During lockdown, I got into painting minis and making terrain and all that sort of stuff, and I still haven't used it because we only record online now. I'm like, I really want to use this shit. I put so much time and effort into painting this shit.
Yeah, Dan made all of our characters as well. Like, just like
on
and they never get the use in live shows. You never have the time or the
No, I've thought about it. I guess.
If you're barely rolling dice, then
we've never really broken out that kind of thing in the live show. Although we have brought little costume props and pieces for particular shows, which elevates it, and we do have a big giant blow up dice, which we will throw out into the audience, and they kind of throw it around. Like a big, beach ball at the football games and stuff, and then whatever it lands on is like, that's what it is.
Yeah,
and we're pretty sure that who got it was it Lauren that bought it?
Yeah, Lauren bought it off Timu.
I think Lauren got it on Timu. It's got like 2 13s and 2 18s.
We didn't realize.
Yeah.
Like, is that dice rolls high? Yeah.
What numbers is it missing?
I think it's like
8 and 4.
Yeah.
4,
That's fucking hilarious.
We were in the middle of a live show, and then an audience member went, "Hang on a second, there's 2 13s on that," and we went, "What? There is it?" And we looked at it, and we were like, "Oh fuck!"
That's 100% the sort of thing I would notice. I would definitely obsess over that. I would see the thing, and I just because I look at a dice, and one of the first things I go is it numbered correctly? Like if there's like an image, if there's like an image of a D20 up on the wall or something, and it's showing a nat 20, I'm like, is it surrounded by a 14, an 8, and a 2? because it should have a 14, an 8, and a 2 as its neighbouring numbers, and it should be opposite the 1, and every numbers that are opposite each other should add up to 21. So if you can see the 20, you shouldn't be able to see any odd number because they're directly opposite each other. All the odd numbers are on the 1 side, and all the even numbers are on the 20 side. And as a math nerd, Jack's checking. And so, like, if you have a mathematically proper dice, then it's gotta have all of those things that I notice. There's also extra things about like all the 3 numbers that are around any one vertex should add up to certain numbers and things as well. But
cool. What do they have to add up to?
It doesn't change. It's not ideal. It's like a difference between theoretical and practical usage. There aren't enough numbers between 1 and 20 for it to actually add up. So there's mathematical things that you can do to try and adjust the weighted value essentially of what it's likely to roll onto, and you get mathematically perfect dice, and they're mostly theoretical.
Wow.
Anyway, but you prefer the in-person minis and stuff.
Yeah, I'm going back to that. Like, I do like the digital, and it's served its purpose, particularly through lockdown, playing with friends and having the maps there in a more relaxed setting that's not recorded. But I'm keen to see like the advancement of augmented reality and where that's going to kind of go down the track, where you kind of can sit around and I don't know if you chuck the goggles on or whatever, but you've got like your little minis moving around a bit more.
Having worked
3D modeling.
Having worked in augmented reality and VR, I do not want that future. I never want to touch any of that shit ever again in my life.
Why?
It makes me so sick just even thinking about it. Like, I worked on this game once that was, our boss was like insistent that the controls were moved with your head. Like you walked forward with the controller, but you turned by moving your head. And I haven't been able to put on a headset since, because every day I'd be coming home after work just absolutely so nauseous. It was hell.
Wow.
Well, it actually makes you sick.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like, I'm disgusted. It's so ethically wrong. The way they work you to the bone in those industries.
They're harvesting your data.
No, that's just the standard.
It's the bourgeoisie. It's the oligarchy.
I think that the tactile nature though of minis and just seeing all those terrains, like when you're a kid, it's just like that's what developed a lot of the sense of wonder and sparked the imagination for me when I first started playing. So I think I'll never quite go past that, but I don't play with them anywhere near as much as I'd like to.
Yeah, I was always into Warhammer figures and stuff. Like I used to, but I never finished any like painting a whole army or whatever. I just get one and kind of get bored and move on.
No one ever does.
Yeah, and then I started making my own, like actually physically sculpting them, and then that was it. I didn't get any further than that. That was as much as I got into it. But yeah, I think for me, theater of the mind I prefer. Like I find the simplified perspective on it is where my heart lies. I found like I just enjoy having to make it happen in my brain too much for it to kind of superimpose it onto a little plastic guy.
But the plastic guy's so cool.
He is so cool. Yeah.
The last question per se is not really a question. It was a business suggestion for how you guys can earn more money. You just make it dies pay per roll, and then whenever anybody goes onto death saves, they have to pay per roll for otherwise they die.
Nice.
Dies pay per roll.
Yeah.
I love that.
All right, so I will call it there and leave you to your days respectively, because I can tell that we're just about coming out of the other side of the wormhole at this point. I can tell that we're pretty close to the other side of the wormhole. We're gonna go out into this new multiverse, new universe where we're gonna find a new quest to go on. In these last moments, do you want to plug anything in particular? Now's your chance to tell people where to find you and all that stuff.
Yeah, check out our website at www.dicepaperroll.com. and you can find all of our good stuff there, including links to our upcoming comedy festival shows, which are at the end of April, 18th night.
No.
12th.
I think it's the 12th, 13th, the 19th, and the 20th.
Yeah. What Ben said.
You can find us on all the other socials at Dice Paper Roll. YouTube, everything. Everything's Dice Paper Roll.
Instagram. Hit us up on Instagram. We don't. That's where we're at.
Cool. And maybe one day we'll get a blue sky. I don't know.
Yeah. And tune on into our Feywild apps that are out at the moment. They're a good time.
Where can people find your podcasts? Was the ideal place for you from your perspective? Is there a platform that actually works better for you? Because you can
everywhere, wherever you get your pod.
They can listen to it. Wherever they can listen to it. I just got 4 bits from Istalri. Thank you, Istalri. So he says these bits are for Dice Paper Roll, and you better give them to them. So now I'm legally obligated to give each of you a single bit on Twitch, which is a US cent.
Thanks, Istalri.
We have 4 cents in our bank account.
4 cents. Yeah.
Right now, that's worth $2 Australian. Yeah.
With the exchange rate, it costs you $2. So unfortunately, you end up owing me money.
I mean, that's convenient for you, Rob.
It is. I know, crazy convenient. I didn't make up the rules. So.
Yeah.
If you are here from Dice Paper Roll and you're watching this, I am Robert Hartley GM. I make Dungeons and Dragons content for a living. You can find me all over the internet at Robert Hartley GM. I was good enough to get the platform. I was quick enough to get the handle on all the different platforms. You can see it above me if you're watching this on YouTube. Otherwise, it's HARTLEY. And you can go to roberthartleygm.com where you can get all of the links to all of the other things. Spirit Goblin has made up for it by giving me 69 bits for me. Thank you, Spirit Goblin. And then 31 bits, you guys can have the leftovers. Thank you, Spirit Goblin. I will take
it. Spirit Goblin. Nice.
See what you did there, Spirit Goblin.
Oh, yeah, sloppy seconds.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna wrap up our short rest. We're gonna get our spell slots back. We're gonna get our only for warlocks or wizards, I guess. We're gonna roll some hit dice, and we're gonna say goodbye for now. With you guys not being Twitch streamers, maybe you don't know anybody on Twitch, but I like to give it the option to my guests anyway, in case you have anybody online that needs a raid. Otherwise, I will see who's online and give them a raid.
Looks like Hassan Pike is on, so send everyone there. Like, I think he needs them. So
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. Oh, good for you.
Is he a huge gamer or something?
No, he's a political.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I like him, but I don't know.
Nobody else? Any suggestions?
I don't know. How do you tell if they're live right now? That's how much of a Twitch noob I am.
Yeah.
All right, I will raid into. Let's read Table Story. Raid into Table Story. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. Thank you, Fancy, for the questions and for being here as a mod to keep the community safe. I always appreciate the work. Thanks very much for being here, whether you're here from my community or theirs, or completely found us by happenstance and didn't know either of us before this. Thanks for sticking around to the end. I will see you guys tomorrow morning for the session 0 for the next Twitch Tales campaign starting tomorrow, and in the meantime, go and listen to some Dice Paper Roll. Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Before you leave, I'd love to know what you thought about the conversation. Drop a comment below. Which was your favorite bit?